Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's me. It's Robert Phoenix. I am back. It is a Sunday night. It is the first Sunday night show of 2021. And of course, we cannot have a Sunday night Astro Live without the Astro Cat himself. Here he comes. Ladies and gentlemen, one and only Jasper. There he is. We don't have your Jasper cam here. So we're gonna have to show everybody just that I'm not lying. There he is, right there. The one and only Astro Cat. He'll be hanging out here tonight, and his sidekick, Rosie, seems to be wanting to get in on the action as well, of course. They've both discovered the great outdoors as they've been kind of sneaking out the patio door a little bit over the past couple of days. Oh, yes. It's going to get kind of crowded here. Masaki will be joining me at 8 o'clock my time. And that means we're going to have a full set here tonight. 2 cats, 2 dudes. 2 dudes and 2 cats. It sounds like a TV sitcom. Hey, I got a great idea for a show. 2 dudes and 2 cats. What's it about? It's about 2 dudes and 2 cats. And what do? Well, they hang out a lot around their house, and they get high, and they eat a lot of food, like weird food. And then every now and then they get their cats high, and then they have dialogues with their cats. Like you can hear the cats talk back to them. Like this is really kind of the cool part of the show. And then the cats carry on conversations, but they can't hear the conversations. But every now and then they think they hear the cats. But then they say, well, I'm just high or stoned or something, right? So they can't really be hearing the cats. But that's the idea for the show. 2 dudes and 2 cats. What do you think? There we go. Secret, oh my God, you're killing me. You are killing me. My God. Hi, Heather. Nice to see you. 2 dudes and 2 cats. I was a dog guy, and I've been watching dog videos last couple of days. Been watching Belgian Malinois. Belgian Malinois. Those are badass. Those are badass dogs. They're like the Michael Jordan, Manny Pacquiao, Bruce Lee of the dog world, man. Those dogs are amazing. They're like the Dolph Lundgrens of the dog world. Let's see. Yes, I wouldn't mind getting a dog. You'd watch it. You'd watch 2 men and 2 cats, 2 dudes. We could have it. Was it 2 dudes and 2 cats? I think that would be the name of it. 2 dudes and 2 cats. But it would have to be like they don't do that kind of program anymore. They do that. Everything is so precious and so politically correct and so earnest. Like they don't have that kind of programming anymore. The good old days of Beavis and Butthead. I was watching some old Jim Henson commercials. Jim Henson got his start with the Muppets with commercials. I don't know if you know that. I didn't know that until tonight. I just found that out. So Jim Henson got his start with Muppets, and they were very popular on the commercial circuit. And he had a couple of Muppets called Will and Will Not. And basically, Will wanted to get Will Not to do something. In this case, drink a cup of really good coffee, or at least the coffee that the Muppets were shilling for. And Will Not would not drink the coffee. So Will would put a gun to Will Not's head and literally it's like a cap gun or whatever, and pull the trigger. You'd see smoke, and one of Jim Henson's Muppets would die. So that's what would happen if you didn't drink the coffee. So you don't see stuff like that anymore. You see it on YouTube. YouTube is great. YouTube is the graveyard of analog memory. I miss Nick Plurd. You're here. Welcome. Let's see. My Jasper Cat is called Pumpkinhead. Now, Pumpkinhead is a good name for an orange striped tabby cat because they look like little pumpkin heads. That's what I think. Little pumpkin head. Political correctness is self-censorship. Absolutely. Once you get rid of that, you're a few more steps closer to freedom, or at least the theoretical concept of it. What did Joe say? I remember last year Robert was planning to get a dog and told dog stories and asked chat for breed recommendations. When we had, the intention is still there, but apparently the cats are blocking that attention. Apparently, the cats have very powerful ways of blocking my intentions when it comes to dogs. So I've got to work on the cat energy or the cat radar block or intention block, and then I think it'll happen. That's what I think. Good question, Joe. But I am watching those dog videos. Pumpkin head, little pumpkin. One time I had these two cats. I told this story before. It's a long time ago though. So I think it's maybe been about a year and a half. So I think I have like about a year and a half expiration date on certain stories because I'll lose some people along the way. I lose new people. I start to tell the stories again. So one time I was living in Olympia, Washington, and I had a great dog named Cosmo. And he was a mixed breed. He was fantastic. He was a black lab, golden retriever, border collie mix. He was incredible. This dog. He was an Aquarius dog too. If you ever have an Aquarius dog, you're in for a ride with those dogs. They're a trip. They're really, really smart. They never listen. They never listen. And then they have little weird quirks and tendencies. Anyway, so I had him, and then I had a cat, and the cat had kittens, and I was giving the kittens away. I think I had one left. So it was me, my cat, and one of the kittens. And the cat would go on walks with us. So we would walk, and then she would follow us around. She was something else, this cat. And she was like kind of a precursor to Rosie. She was a little gray striped tabby, but sort of the same build. And so she would follow us around. Her and that little kitten who I eventually homed would dart in and out of cars and stuff, but would walk with us. And I think this was one of the walks without the kitten. So it was just me, my dog, and the little cat. Her name was Desi. Sensing the theme here? Desi, Rosie. Anyway, we come up to this one house, and these people had just moved in to the neighborhood. And I had never really been around what I would call white trash before. I'd never been around white, and I try to not put people in buckets, but trust me, they're in the white trash bucket. Okay. And so, these are the people that live most of their life in their front yard. You know what I'm talking about? Those people. Anyway, I'm walking past their house, and this little kid says to me, "Hey, mister, that's my cat." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "That's my cat, mister." He might have been about maybe 8 years old, maybe 8. "That's my cat." What are you talking about? This is my cat. This is my cat. Her name is Desi. I'm trying to rationalize. Now I'm trying to have a rational moment with a vaccine-injured little redneck kid who's living in my neighborhood now, and I'm kind of like not having a good. I'm not having a good go at it. It's not going well. So then the mother comes out, and I'm like, "Oh, here we go. Voice of reason." I'm like, what's going on here? I'm like, "Well, your son thinks that this is his cat. It's actually my cat. Just, let you know." She goes, "That's our cat." I'm like, "Oh, what the fuck? What is going on?" I mean, it's got totally bizarre. And at that point, I had like a few cents with her, and I picked the cat up. I said, "You people are nuts," and I walked away. And then the neighbor came out. She came running up to me. She says, "Oh my god, these people are horrible. They're horrible. They the other night they had about 6 or 7 cats over here. I don't know what they do with them." I'm like, "Oh my god, this is crazy." Olympia, Washington, very interesting place. Your cat had 2 homes. We had that. No. My cat did not get out. No, that's a different cat. That's a different cat. This cat only got out when we went on walks. I didn't let that cat out. I did not let that cat out. No, I know that. I know that story. That was Johnny. That was the Johnny story. No, you're right. That's happened. Not this cat. It was insane. Totally insane. But they do that. Those cats are. What do you want to say about cats? They're not loyal. Cats are not loyal. Dogs are loyal. Cats, not so much. They're not loyal. You really, they're not. It's okay. It's okay. I understand that they're a different kind of breed, but they're not loyal. People don't own cats; rather, cats own them. It's an old saying, but it's the reason why it's been around so long is because it's true. Absolutely true. Hi, Michael. Nice to see you. Hey, Carol. Oh, Carol made me a really nice stone. Carol does these really cool stones. I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna get it so I can show it to you. I'll be right back. Hold on. All right. Hey, what's going on, Steve? Good to see you. So this is a stone right here that Carol sent me. Now Carol sells these actually. She brought a bunch of these to our first event, little tiny ones with little spirit animals on them, and you got to reach in there and grab one. And so, thank you very much, Carol. And I'm sure if you're interested in Carol's spirit stones, spirit animal stones, you can connect with her right there in chat. You know what? I'm supposed to bring Masaki on, so why don't I do that? This is let's see, Kaida. Is it Masaki? Hold on. Hold on. Kiter. What should we get now? Let's see. Oh, hold on a second. I got my phone here. Let's bring the man, the myth, the Masaki on. Let's see what we got here. Today is Greta Thunberg's birthday. Masaki sent me a photo of her. She looks so much like a dude now. Was she ever really a girl? I mean, check her out. Check her out. That's Greta Thunberg. That's Greta Dudeberg. A kiter. A kiter. That's what I thought. That's Greta Dudeberg. It's also Kyle Rittenhouse's birthday. A kiter 01. All right. The call is out. Should have Masaki here any day now. Oh, Lair is cool, man. Lair is really cool. Thanks, showing down. Yeah. Let's do another plug for Carol. Spirit Stone. Spirit Stone. Spirit Stone. It's totally dude. Totally dude. Would it be weird if Kyle Rittenhouse was actually a chick? Then you would have Greta Dudeberg and what would you call it? Kylie Rittenhouse. I'm sorry. I'm in a mood. I'm in kind of a mood. But that would be something, wouldn't it? if Greta Thunberg was a dude and Kyle Rittenhouse was a chick, it would all make sense then. If we could solve that, if we solve that, would it be great if it was like, and it kind of is that way. Would it be great if we just solved a puzzle, and once you solve the puzzle, or we solve the puzzle, then all these morons and creeps would just like evaporate, and the program would be over. I mean, I think it is kind of like that, actually. I do think it's kind of like that. But would it be great though if we just do that? And wouldn't it be easy to just figure out that Kyle was a she and Greta was a he, and then it would all be over. The physical universe would evaporate. What's going on, man?
Hey, Robert. Yeah, Greta, how dare you?
Nice fade, man. Yeah. I like the fade. Looks good. Did you get to go to the Korean barber before they shut down?
You know what? I go to the Vietnamese Vin hair salon. They're closed, of course.
They're closed.
Yeah, 626 is San Gabriel Valley. That's like it's probably like LA County area, right? San Gabriel Valley.
So
they're all closed.
What's your plan? Are you going to go like samurai, let it grow out, or what? Are you going to get the flow beat?
I could use my clippers for a while. Mm-hmm. We'll see.
Yeah. Did you get a haircut in Brazil?
No, but you know what? I don't know if this guy's still there. There's an old school barber shop in the Little Tokyo. They call Liberdade. That's the area, the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And this guy, he's a million years old. He's not super old, but you could tell he's just been in there for years. This like has 2 seats. But let me tell you, Robert, best haircut I've ever gotten.
Really?
Like the guys that like take the time with the scissors and stuff,
Right. And but you didn't do it this time though.
Nah, because I cut my hair right before I went.
So. Okay. So if you don't know who this is Masaki Miyagawa, international man of mystery, master numerologist, crystal trader, radionics freak. There it is. Dogecoin.
Yeah.
So are you Doge's? What was Cliff High into? What was he pushing? What was he pimping?
I don't know. He pumped a lot of him and J Snip. They were pumping a lot of coins.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Dogecoin. So there's a coin with the Shiba Inu dog on it, and it was started at the end of 2013. So it's like one of the first 6 cryptos.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a joke, right? But this joke was the number 1 performing coin, I think, yesterday. It went up 135% in like one day.
We need more jokes.
True, no Gemini. Maybe the Doge gonna take over.
We need things that are absolutely worth nothing to escalate and become voluminous and take on great value and worth, and have absolutely no value or meaning at all. That's what we need in this world.
Well, Gemini rules the street, right? It's the commoner, right? And one of the criticisms of Dogecoin is it has no coin cap. It just continuously gets produced, but that's actually good for you need a slight inflation for a real currency because you get lost coins. But Dogecoin, I think, has a good future because all cryptos actually are undervalued, compared to the liquidity that's out there. So when this money goes in, Dogecoin, yes, it does not have a limited number of coins, but I gifted, 100 Doge. So 1 Doge now is equal to 1 penny, 1 US cent. Mm-hmm. But 100 Doge I gifted to my friends in Brazil to get them started with a wallet. Mm-hmm. And that 100 Doge is now $5 Brazilian, which is enough for a cup of coffee, a small snack. It could be a viable on the street.
It's a little micro economy. Yeah. It's a micro asset for a micro economy in a micro world.
And the block time's only a few minutes, so you can clear a transaction in like 5 minutes or something like that.
Right. Well, that's cool. That's cool. All right.
Dogecoin, people. Dogecoin. Doge.
And of course, Masaki gets nothing from this except maybe his Dogecoin goes to 102 or 103.
I am a Dogenaire, Robert.
Dogenaire. Okay.
Over 1 million Doge. Yeah.
Wow. That's good. That's impressive. So Well, here we are. It's 2021, and I wanted to bring you in for some numerology because that's another thing that Masaki does pretty well is numerology. And I could go there a little bit, but let's talk with you. Let's talk about 2021. Let's break it down. We know we're dealing with a 5 energy versus a 4 energy with 2021, and you want to get into that a little bit?
Sure. Well, one of the things is that people like Robert, I've learned a lot, and my personal opinion is when you're dealing with the esoteric reading systems, we're all kind of looking at the same thing. It's just maybe through a slightly different angle or method. So when I listen to Robert, I can compare what I'm getting through the numbers, right? So in the numerology, last year was a 4, which was what? 4 is it's Aquarian energy, right? So there's this debate: did we enter the Aquarian age in 2012, or some of the sidereal Vedic people say it actually started in the 1940s with World War II? There's all these debates. Well, whatever people think, I think it's pretty plain to see 2020 was a huge shift, right? And that 4 number is Aquarian energy. So anybody born actually on the 4th of the month, the 13th, or the 31st, they have Aquarian energy in them. That's
what about 20, right? What about 22?
Oh, 22. I forgot 22. Yeah. And each one has a little something to it. 22 is like master number, right? So but obviously that 4 number, Aquarius is inherently destructive, right? Because you got to clean the slate to bring the new. Mm-hmm. So that's what I think a lot of the New Agers didn't factor in.
4 is also the square, right? It's the square. It's the cube, which is also very Saturnian. Of course, Saturn being the original home of Aquarius,
original ruler. Yeah.
So I think there's some connection there, right?
I would say if somebody was to look at their numerology chart and you see a 4 or an 8, there's some in the metaphysical thinking. A lot of people would say that you came in with some karma to deal with. And the flip side of that is, of course, people with the 4, they have that Aquarian skill. There's always an upside and a downside. People with the 8, same thing. You're going to have some uncontrollable events happen, but they have a special business skill because Saturn Cap energy rules business, right? Mm-hmm. Robert, I've seen men, especially with a life path 8. So when you calculate the chart, the 2 main numbers come out of the birthday. Yeah. The life path is a calculation of the entire birthday. Men with a life path 8, when they have a divorce, they got to pay out big. You got to pay for your freedom, but the other thing is usually they make enough money to cover it. But I've seen that multiple times. Men with the life path 8. Mm-hmm. But going back to the year, so this year 2021 is a 5, and I'm already noticed we're already only a couple days in. I don't know how it's been for you, but it's getting pretty busy already. We're only a couple days in. I'm noticing I'm talking a lot more. I booked a number of shows. It's only like 3 days into the year, and I did a bunch of readings. I'm like, wow, this year is going to go quick, which makes sense, right? Because
if it goes any quicker than last year, by the time we get to Sunday, it'll be over. I mean, last year was a speeding bullet.
The Hill Country conference you did, it seems more like 6 to 8 months ago, not 2 months ago.
Feels very far in the past,
right?
Yeah, really far in the past now. Yeah.
So 5 in numerology, you can connect to Mercury. So the 2 Mercury signs would be Gemini and Virgo. Mm-hmm. So we're in true node Gemini in astrology. So what does that tell us? Both systems are telling us this year it's very mercurial and Gemini. Mm-hmm. So so we were in it last year, but I think you're going to see all the trends of last year. The signifier for last year is like this is some kind of gate into Aquarian energies that's continuing this year, but you're going to have a heavy dose of Mercury Gemini energy. So I think it's going to be even quicker, and you could say in a way it's more unstable than last year. So
I'd say it's way more unstable than last year.
So
even though last year was pretty unstable.
Oh yeah, but people have no idea because they're coming. Most people that we know were coming from a first world Western developed economy, right?
Yeah.
But I've said multiple times, when I see what's happening, I go, I know this. This is Brazil, where it's this total, like, chaos is a mode of operation. Right?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
And that's why, because a lot of things, it's like subconscious or it's just in the culture. So you see, like, Brazilians are very physical and they're very good at sports and like the jiu-jitsu, everybody knows Joe Rogan and the 10th Planet and the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What's that about? What's that? It's all about like slipping out and locking and things like that. That kind of like movement. Mm-hmm. And then the Brazilian capoeira, right? It's a martial art, but it's a dance. So just like this, you never like fixed. And I only like karate is like very angular and fixed, right? Mm-hmm. But the kind of dance styles in capoeira, this is very Brazilian. Why? Well, because their culture, their country is totally chaotic. You cannot be fixed.
Well, they had to like theoretically make up these moves to make it look like they were dancing. So
it came from the slaves.
Well, so the plantation owners didn't think they were figuring out how to take care of themselves and get better at self-defense.
Oh yeah, if you get a flying kick to the face, that is far more damaging than a punch, because the leg and hip muscles are so much bigger. But in any case, so this year, and I have a free report. I'll post a link up later, but it's on my Patreon, and I was basically saying, all the trends of last year, which are, what is Aquarius? Aquarius is the rebel, right? And I said in September, well, I was supposed to be in the first Tail Country conference meetup, but I went to Europe, right?
That's
so I couldn't be there. Yeah. But right at that time, I put out a report. So a couple months before the end of the year, because I knew 2020 was going to be big, and you had been talking about it also, right? So I was saying for 2020, it's going to be very Aquarian, which is what? Aquarius is the revolutionary, right? Mm-hmm. So I said protests in the street. This was before anybody was even hearing about Black Lives Matter or Antifa. Mm-hmm. I also said that, it would be the first year of the reset. Now, a lot of us, we can intellectually know things, but when you actually see it happen, mm-hmm. it's still shocking, right? You're like, wow, this is really happening.
Yeah. It's been like a slow motion car wreck, mm-hmm. and then now all of a sudden it's speeding up really fast. We're starting to see things happen really, really quickly. I'm going to go over some of that tonight because I wanted to sort of look at where we are since the Great Eclipse. And a lot has happened since the Great Eclipse, and it's important to be able to track these things. But before we go there, let's go back to 2020. And what I think was really interesting about 2020 was that there was a combination of like deconstruction and reconstruction. There was decentralization and massive centralization.
Build back better.
It was all happening simultaneously in 2020. Uh-huh. And it's really kind of an amazing thing to watch, because people's lives were being deconstructed and reconstructed and deconstructed and reconstructed. And if you were on sort of the right side of that thing, you could kind of put pieces back together or take advantage of a more non-linear system of not going to work, or creating something different than the gig that you've been doing. If you're on the wrong side of that, that's been really difficult. And my heart goes out to people who are without a job or in the restaurant business, and they're sitting around waiting for a $600 fucking check. So we're seeing both of these things happen simultaneously. And I'm not sure did they sign the stimulus package? I don't know where we are with that thing. I mean,
I think individuals get 600, and I think a family can get up to like 2,000 something, 2,500 something like that. I don't know.
Right.
So it's basically an insult, because if you see how much pork belly is in there, it's ridiculous. And Israel got like 500 million, but then I think Egypt got over 1 billion. So a lot of countries got money out of us. It's basically, you said it. They're looting all they can right now, because they're
taking whatever's left.
Yeah.
And then whoever has the title or the deed or the paper on everything else will come in and collect. and that's where it's going to go.
And isn't it like an insult? The IRS, they're gonna audit 50% more small businesses, like in this time, really? You know, yeah. But just to wrap up 2020, which was the 4-year Aquarian energy. I said global economic crisis, economic reset, but I didn't really see a outbreak to kick it off, right? And I thought it would just be, because for years people been looking at Federal Reserve, it's the bankers. I was just thinking like, okay, economic collapse, but it was a cultural reset too, which I wasn't thinking of. The political turmoil, right? Gemini, the polarity, right? Which started in May 2017. So it was an Aquarian year, but in May 2020, we started True Node Gemini, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Earth changes, like weird weather, storms, and those kind of things. Mm-hmm. Because Aquarius can, and we're in like kind of Uranus and Taurus also, right? Until 2026. So that's continuing to go on.
Yep.
Strange and unusual events, even paranormal and UFO sightings, which actually was quite prominent. I think that just because everything was so topsy-turvy that people were just trying to handle their daily business, they weren't even paying attention to all the high strange. But Robert, Aquarius is X-Files, it's the aliens, it's the interdimensionals, it's sci-fi. So we would have had an uptick. Yeah.
This is the year too, man, with Jupiter. I'm going to talk about Jupiter tonight because Jupiter in August, Jupiter is going to be opposite in between. So it's going to be, you're going to have the Jupiter, the sun, and the Earth, right? The Jupiter-Sun opposition during that time. Jupiter will be closer to Earth that time than any other time in a very long time. So there's a specific date in August I'm going to look at. And I think that date in August is leading up to that date. Those dog days in August, I think are going to be really weird. I think the UFO thing, the ET thing is going to be off the charts. And it's in August, because that's when Jupiter's the closest. And that's when it's in direct opposition of the sun.
I may be moving around that time. We'll see.
Oh, well.
Because these Uranian energies are hitting everybody.
Yeah.
But I've been looking at my chart because I'm a Scorpio sun, and it's hitting the 4th house, which is the home. And then I heard Scorpios, if you want or don't want babies, there's an uptick in that this year. So I'll have to see what happens.
Anytime Saturn anytime Saturn goes through the 4th house, you're moving. You're moving. I mean,
I felt it, and then you said something about when you turn 44. So I turned 44 this fall.
Oh, you go through the Saturn opposition.
Yeah, and then I had a reading, and I was looking at my transits, and it's like pretty sure that's going to happen. But so 2021, 5 Mercury energy, right? So great reset, but accelerated. All the Gemini things, Gemini's the twins, the polarity, right? So we're going to see. I kind of think we'll see, Robert, but I kind of think even though Trump seems to be fading out, there's still a better than average chance he's actually going to be installed back in. Because if you want that kind of polarity, the Democrat figures don't do it. It has to be Trump to really kick this to like the two sides going at each other this year.
I think that's true, and I still think there. I've been vacillating on this thing for a couple of weeks now because it's just been feeling like the energy has been dropping out of the whole Trump thing. When I go into feel, it just feels like it's bottomed out.
Well, he went from the Beatles to like a ghost.
Yeah,
right.
It just bottomed out, and you had Lynn Wood, his surrogate on Twitter, just going off on Twitter. I mean, have you been following his tweets at all?
I've seen that. Didn't he say Roberts was on Epstein's Island or something like that?
Oh, he's done more than that. He said that Michelle Obama's a man. Okay.
Oh well.
Right. So he said Michelle Obama's a man, and that those aren't the Obama's kids. I mean, Lynn Wood is tweeting shit that we would tweet right now. Okay.
Well,
these would be our tweets. It's kind of amazing. Actually.
You see, Robert. That's why Obama was so popular, because the Obama White House had big dick energy. Not, who knows, but there seems to be something odd about Michelle.
I mean, Big Mike. Big Mike. So Lynn Wood has just been laying it out there. And I almost feel like, and I talked about this on Friday's show, I almost feel like it's almost like Trump is using his Twitter account now. Like everything that Trump would like to say, like Lynn Wood is saying it. And what's interesting is Lynn Wood never gets flagged or anything by Twitter. Now, why is that? That's interesting. Maybe because he's a lawyer. I don't know. Maybe that's the reason why. But the 5 energy to me, there is a lot of chaotic kind of intensity with 5 energy. And when you look at the minor arcana, right, in the tarot, which I've talked about, all those minor arcanas, they're all cards where things go wrong, right?
Well, also, this, Robert, the Mercury signs rule mental illness too, like Gemini. And you think about the kind of pressures people are under. There are a lot of people, they're still thinking we can go back to normal.
Oh, no,
and I think the thing that didn't happen last year that you're gonna start to see it this year is people lost jobs, but you didn't have the hyperinflation, the banking runs, and I think that's going to start this year. And when people see that, that's going to totally pull the last bit of the rug out from under them, and they'll say, okay, there's no way we're going to go back to normal, because you're going to see the extreme economic crisis. And so also I was saying that the safe havens like gold, silver, cryptocurrency will probably, I think the gains are going to be eye-watering, or the day-to-day. But even with that, you're not going to be able to rely on just, say, if a lot of people are just on Coinbase, right? Well, what if Coinbase is completely locked up? Because I don't think any of these exchanges have prepared for the influx of hundreds of millions of people trying to get out of their paper currencies across the world, right? So I think it'd be smart just to set up, even people that are listening to this and you don't think you're ever going to buy cryptocurrency, you may want to just, because I'm sure you know about it, right, Robert? There's a whole process that you have to get your ID scanned. They have to confirm your bank. I mean, it could take like weeks. When we're into this year and the panic and the crisis really starts, it may take weeks, or you may not even be able to get an account on some of these exchanges. So just to have multiple exchanges, so like, okay, this one's down or locked up, then I can use this one. It's a thing of like being the juggler and being able to shift and weave and have not be disappointed if one option doesn't work out, right? Yeah. Or even with the supermarkets, right? Supply chain, right? So maybe your local Trader Joe's or whatever, your Kroger's, your HEB is they're out of something, or the line's too long. Well, maybe you go check out, this is a little tip, Robert, the ethnic markets.
Oh yeah.
The ethnic markets, I never had a problem in this whole crisis.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, absolutely. Some of the best meat I've actually bought are from like the Mexican markets. Bought really good meat from Mexican markets.
And then so of course Gemini, because 2021 being a 5 number, which is the mercurial Gemini energy, and we're in true node Gemini until January 2022, right?
Yep.
So you're gonna keep seeing a lot of the local travel or interstate or relocation from state to state. Individually, people may be able to travel internationally. Like I went to Brazil, but I can tell you that plane was more than half empty. So because the 2 poles or the signs would be Gemini in one end, the opposite sign would be Sagittarius. So Gemini is local, Sagittarius would be international, right? So there's a restriction on Sag energies, and you can even look at like the churches, right? The churches and temples are closed. Well, why? Well, according astrologically, Sagittarius rules the preacher in churches and so forth. So that's going to be restricted, right? So,
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
You ever get into the Enneagram at all?
No, you're talking about the one that looks like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No.
So I thought I'd bring up the 5 in the Enneagram.
Okay, let's take a look.
Just so that people can wrap their heads around. This is a type. Now, the Enneagram comes out of Gurdjieff. And Gurdjieff basically nailed down 9 personality types. In fact, he would ask this question to people at at parties, whatever. He says, "You know how many people there are in the world?" And people would say, "Oh, I don't know, X amount of million or whatever." He would say, "No, there's 9." Right. So what he was referring to is that there were 9 types. So the 5 types, the number 5 in the Enneagram is the investigator. So I'm just looking at this as kind of an archetype for this year, right? So it says that 5s are alert, insightful, curious, able to concentrate and focus on developing complex ideas, skills, independent, innovative, and inventive. They can also become preoccupied with their thoughts and imaginary constructs. They become detached, yet high-strung and intense. They typically have problems with eccentricity, nihilism, and isolation. At their best, visionary pioneers, often ahead of their time and able to see the world in an entirely new way. So the basic fear is being useless, helpless, or incapable. So if that's a dominant theme for the 5 in the Enneagram, I think we could transpose that potentially for a 5-year, and that the fear would be to be helpless or useless or to see events around us that render us incapable.
Yeah. Well, Robert, think about this, considering the Enneagram, right? We're in a highly polarized society worldwide now.
Yep.
And we have at least half the people, they're like the COVIDians, right? The masked COVIDians, the branch COVIDians.
It's more than half. I'm sorry. It's more than half.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but let's just say that those people, because they're basically order followers and they're thinking by doing the quote unquote right thing, the message that's coming, these dictates and mandates coming from above, that they're going to be safe. These people are going to be totally wiped out because the mainstream, this happened in 29 too. They even through the crisis, they were saying everything's okay. Just keep your money in the banks. What do you think is going to happen to these people? It's only going to be the oddballs that are going to survive.
Yep.
With some of their money intact,
Right.
So
the one of the things that it said on that description of the Enneagram is to understand what's going on, to look into things, to try to make order out of something that looks very disorderly, or to find something that's useful in a state of uselessness.
I would say this: Gemini learns by doing. So this is really a time of experimentation. So try something. Try for a day. Try it for a week. If it doesn't work, switch to doing something else, because this is the hands-on learning. Whereas the Sagittarius mind is more the kind of the high thinking, theoretical. Well, you could draw from some of that, but then try it on the street level, see what works. Because I'm going to bring this up, Robert. I had this comment was actually for Emily, because I copied the video. I was on her show a couple days ago. I uploaded it to my site. There's this pretty nasty post. The person, it was a Trumper. I guess she felt offended by something Emily was saying. One of the last lines was like, "Yeah, and these low IQ mixed race people in Brazil."
Oh, really?
Let me tell you, if anyone was to think this, drop your ass in a totally chaotic society and see how long you last. Now, you could have a low level of standard education, but there is something called natural intelligence and common sense and street smarts. And let me tell you, you cannot survive if you're a stupid person in one of the top murder countries in the world. Right? Because that's one thing where I'm smart because I have the book learning. Drop your ass in the favela, see what happens.
Yeah. It's true. It's absolutely true. I mean, when who was it? When it was the Turks who started to move into places like Germany, they would just completely rough up the Germans, and the Germans didn't know what to do with them, and so they would what they lacked in social mechanism, they made up for.
It's called power of the will.
In other ways, but that's been the way that immigrants have done that for a long time. They would basically stay together. And
every immigrant group, Robert, has always had street thugs and mafias. Even the Japanese when they first came here.
Yeah. And then what happens? They get assimilated, right? I mean, a couple generations down the line, that's what happened to the mob. 2-3 generations down the line with the mob, they all wanted to be respectable. They didn't want to be good. They wanted to be good fellas, but wanted to be corporate good fellas. They wanted to be made men of a different stripe or a different suit. So, but that's what happens. But yeah, I mean, I think this is where we get to figure out how to deal with even more. I think there's going to be even more chaos than last year.
For sure. For sure. Because it's not only the economic breakdown, but I think there's a social breakdown too. And when people come to, when there's hard times, especially economically, the racism starts to rise. Because people are basically getting shoved down to that first chakra. That's part of this whole reset. Is like there was a little bubbling where the powers that be were like, this is getting dangerous. So what do? You shove people down into survival level. So they can't think about the bigger things, right? They're just trying to survive, right? So and then also when a lot of people are just at the survival level, how long before you will do anything to feed your children, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like people were getting stuck down in Maslow's basement. They weren't even down on the first level of Maslow's pyramid, right? They were down in the basement, and you can see, and people are still very afraid. I mean, there's a very dominant fear strain. It's not COVID, it's fear that's going through our environment right now.
That's what I see too, is across the board, and it was interesting just comparing the Brazil situation to here, because and it's very similar, but just because you're an outsider, you could take a different perspective, and that's what I see. It's a lot of the fear, and when you're in that fear state, and most people, they've never looked at like 5 minutes of the things we look at.
Right.
They will do anything for some semblance of order and security. Yeah. So they're hanging onto the leg of Big Daddy government, saying like, "Please save me," and that ain't gonna work. But we're gonna see all kinds of reactions to the situation this year. But I think that a lot of us have been through so many things that, in a way, we died and were reborn many times already. So, and especially a lot of the people in your audience, that follow your shows.
Yeah,
they're healers and metaphysicians.
But they're not soft. These people are not soft. These people, I know a lot of these people. A lot of them have gone through a lot of shit, and a lot of trauma and loss, and these people are like tempered, right?
So that's the thing, is like, once you've been through a lot of things, but then also, that toughens you up. But when you start realizing there's more than the 3D reality, I've said I said this before, but I don't want to die, but I'm not afraid of death, because I've seen enough to know there's more than that. And I have a thing similar to Edward Casey. It's Neptune in the 8th house. Neptune and Sag in the 8th house. So I have literally, it's here and there, Robert, but I have had contact with that kind of between the dimensions before. When my grandma on my dad's side, she ate terrible. She was Hawaiian Japanese, and then she had an ulcer, and then she went to the hospital because she lost so much blood, just bleeding, and she flatlined in the hospital. We were there, and then I was holding her hand, because it flatlined. This is how bad the hospitals are now, Robert. It's like it's like a movie. Like, I've seen this in the movies or TV. The flatlines, that means there's a problem, right? And I had to call the nurses over, and they're like, "Oh yeah, she's flatlining." And so I was holding her hand, and then I was in my mind, and this was like way before I knew anything, way before I took a year of clairvoyant training. This was before that, right? And I was just saying, like, don't go, right? She recovered and lived one more year, but she told me like the whole thing, the whole deal. Like, she saw the lights and the tunnel of light or whatever, and the relatives, and then she goes, "But then I heard your voice and you called me back." Yeah, and I was like this, because at that time I didn't know nothing from nothing, but I've had those kind of experiences to tell me there's more than this 3D space that we're in. And this is the thing of these egghead, Neoplatonic priest class, these scientists priest class. this is what collapses society the last time, and they're here again within their eggheads, totally disconnected from the earth. They're just all in their head, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think some of them actually have a clue that there's something else going on the other side.
Oh yeah, they're talking to demons. That's what they're talking to.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
They have the D wave. They're making tunnels to that dark dimension, trying to crack Leviathan out of the pit. That's
absolutely.
Yeah,
trying to get buddy with that energy.
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So so we got a 5-year coming up, and the fifth sign in the zodiac. What are we talking about? We got Aries, Taurus, Cancer, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo. So Leo is the fifth sign, right? So there's a kind of a Leo undertone to this year as well, especially when we have Saturn and Jupiter in opposition of the Sun. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about this, this kind of Leo energy, but it seems to be a bit debilitated. It seems to be less on like even when I'm watching sports now, it's like really weird. I don't really watch sports, to be honest with you. I don't even watch sports, but I get a little hint of it now. And this idea of the individual being this superstar, or the individual being somebody that was kind of is larger than life and is marketable and heroic and archetypal, that's just going away.
The age of the Hollywood star and superstars, I think that's it might not quite fit. It might not fit with the Aquarian energies.
It doesn't fit at all. And even with basketball, which was already headed in that direction, it's becoming this kind of faceless, weird exercise, and I don't know what.
You know what I'm seeing, Robert? And I'm feeling old now because I'm not of the TikTok generation, but I am on Instagram, so they repost a lot of TikTok stuff on there.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing, connecting to like the star, right? I'm seeing specifically a lot of young women, and they're doing all these dances. So it's kind of like a theme. They're all kind of like the same, but among this class, you have ones that are more popular than others. That's what I'm seeing. But it's not like before where, they were paying somebody $40 million. They're probably dropping like 40,000 on them to like show a bag of Dorito chips or something, So
there's a hierarchy still. We're still talking hierarchies inside of the thing.
It's like that Aquarian group where they're all kind of doing similar things, but in that class, you're seeing ones that are higher tier than others, but it's not the superstar, the solitary, Yeah.
Right. Well, let me ask you a few questions here before I send you back off into your wonderful Southern California existence. Sure. Let's go through. Let's say I'm going to go like somebody's in a 1 year. Well, let's say somebody's in a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year. Let's just go right down the line.
Okay, so typically there's like a 9-year cycle, and so this would be like the coming from the birth date. There's or the full birth date. There's a calculation. It's like a biorhythm that starts. I use a software now because I'm going to do that stuff by hand, but it doesn't matter once you're comfortable with the numbers. But so they're 9-year cycles, and it goes 1 to 9 and 1 to 9. So 1 would be the year where you would really want to push something new. It sets, and then especially that 1 year sets the tone for the whole cycle. So it's basically, it's 9 years, but let's say it's like a decade. It's a pretty long period. So if you know that you're coming up on a 1 year, it's actually the year before the 9 year. That's the time to clean house. And then I know a lot of the Asian cultures, I don't know about other cultures, but it's a big thing. Traditionally you want to clean the house before New Year's. So, for the lunar calendar, like the Chinese, their New Year's in a couple months, right? So they still have time to like clean the house, but that's actually energetically you're cleaning house to make space for the new things to come in. So let's say you're hitting a 1 year. Well, the year before you should have basically did a review, what's working, not working, the habits, whatever. You keep what's good and everything else, clean it out, because you want to make room. This is particularly a problem, I think, with Western societies. because look at us, we're like fat, right? We're accumulators. We don't want to let nothing go. But
Yeah.
that's the whole the birth-death process, right? We're just accumulating. It's actually good to clear stuff out or do like a cleanse, because then you're letting space, you open up space for new things to come in. So the 1 year is when like the whole trend for the new cycle is established.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 2 year things slow down. Mm-hmm. It's like the baby was born the year 1, and then 2, it's more of a, and you can, again, all these numbers you can rate to other archetypes. Number 1 be like the sun, 2 is like the moon. So of course the 2 year gonna be a little bit slower, right? Things are marinating. Mm-hmm. Then the 3 year is connected to Jupiter Sag energy. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot more social. It's a great time for creativity, writing, speaking. Some people are into that, but it's basically creativity, kind of charisma, socialization is there. Mm-hmm. It's also, can be lucky, right? Because Sagittarius is lucky. Mm-hmm. 4 is the Aquarian year. Now, the typical Pythagorean numerology won't tell you this, but if you keep digging into the numbers, you start finding out you can't connect planets. Mm-hmm. So 4 years, things could really change, right? I just read a client this morning, and she was going to have a 4 year, I think, next year. So mm-hmm. I said, probably some things are going to change for you, because, it's going to shake things up a little bit, right?
Right.
5 year. Well, 5 years, like, we're in a 5 year now, right? So it's mercurial.
If you're a 5 year and it's a 5 year, you're really kind of in sync with where things are.
Yeah. Well, and then Gemini people, they're probably like, oh, I've been living this, So it's actually time. It's the 3 and the 5 year are kind of exciting, because it's kind of like nonstop. It's mm-hmm. never boring. Like Gemini people, they're kind of low attention span, but they do a lot of things, right?
Yep.
A lot of time it's connected to travel, or because it's like input of experiences. Mm-hmm. But nowadays it could be virtual travel through that, like we're doing right now, Robert, right?
Yep.
Like that kind of connection. But it benefits from some kind of overall structure. So have some overall plan. Like by the middle of this year, I want to do this. Like something simple, like I should have a website, right? Make it achievable so you don't make yourself crazy, but by spring or by summer, have that done. And then by the end of the year, have another goal. Because, the thing is that if this mercurial energy is totally formless, then if you didn't have some kind of goal or direction, that Saturnalian progression, where you want to take this energy, then at the end of the year, you could end up exactly back at the beginning, mm-hmm. And some people have this energy in themselves. So it could be like 5 or 10 years. If they didn't have some kind of plan, they end up, a lot of artists have this,
Yeah, and you find a lot of artists with 5 energy.
Yeah.
Creative destructive cycles. Yeah.
So I think this year it's going to go very quick. You're going to have more packed into this year than a couple years probably, but won't be boring, huh? So the 6 year, 6 is a Venus energy. So mm-hmm. it's a lot around family or the close circles.
Yep.
They call 6 the number of the teacher, the healer, and the counselor. Mm-hmm. That's actually my life path is 6.
You're a 6. That makes sense.
Yeah. And it's actually not bad for money sometimes too, because Venusian energies. Doesn't it rule Taurus too?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah. So it can be slightly expansive too, because it's like the generative energies, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
7 year. That's connected to Neptune Pisces. It's the thinker, mm-hmm. and it's introvert. So a lot of times it kind of goes like more active or to the outside observer inactive, because 7 is like it's all internal. So it may seem quiet outside, but actually it's a time to focus on that inner mm-hmm. power. So it's a time to think, to research, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But it could be a little bit isolated, So the thing is each one of these, these are all sign symbols, archetypes. is knowing that the direction or the trend is XYZ, then you should know like it would benefit me if I would offset that with a little bit of the opposite energy, right? To try to balance things out. So if you're in a 7, if we're in a 7-year or somebody's in a 7-year, and you'll probably come to some significant conclusions, or you could get some deep research or learning done. It's a time to take classes or just do self-learning, could be above board, or you just do, self-taught type things. You may want to get out a little bit more, or at least talk to some people, because it could be isolated. So you offset that with being more social. Try to be, 8-year, that's Saturn Capricorn energy. So 8-year is kind of like when the karma comes due for some people. It's also, obviously Saturn Capricorn energy. Chinese love 8, right?
Yeah, it's a big number for them.
Yeah, because there's this thing too, like they say that the different racial types are assigned a different astrological sign. A lot of people say Asians are Libra, but I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of Capricorn energy in there. The Chinese love 8, Yeah. So, but if you've been working on something, a project or career consistently, the 8-year, you should see an uptick if you've been doing the right things. Right. If you've been avoiding your purpose, I've seen this actually very rarely, Robert, but if a person has been totally avoiding what they're supposed to do, they can get whooped too. But in general, most people are on a certain track, and the 8-year, you see like a peak of the business.
It can be very propulsive. Yeah.
Now 9, in the signs, it's actually Mars Aries energy, but that's the end of the cycle. So 9, it's the conclusion. So, and 9 is also considered like old soul in the numbers. 1 being the first, 9 being the last.
Right.
And so it's kind of a year to take perspective. But if it's in a person's personal chart, like they were born on the 9th or something like that, I would tell them that, because it's a manifestor number also, that Mars energy, but 9 is considered a humanitarian number, and it's often involved in bettering the group or the community. So you could say in that way, maybe 9 is kind of like a bodhisattva number, right? You've been through all the progression. Now, this could be a year count, but then it can also apply personally to people. So like if you have a heavy 9 energy, it's like you've been through the progression of all the number types, right? And then the 9th is the last. So then you bring something back. But they also call it, as you give, so shall you receive. So you could do something humanitarian, but you can get compensated. That's more if it's on a person's personal chart. If it was a year count, that's like basically like I was saying earlier. Right. You take a look back. What do you want to bring forward, and what do you want to cut?
Right. Yep.
So
yeah. Well, thanks for that. I have a 9 soul, by the way. That's my soul number.
Okay. 9. Well, I think we've seen Robert. He gets sometimes when he's gonna put the fire on people. He's gonna bring the sword of truth.
I don't know, man. No, I'm a Scorpio rising. I've got no other choice. Right? So I'm compelled sometimes.
Well, I have to say, Robert, because you have Mars in Cancer, right?
I do.
So that can be a difficult placement, but the way that you put the conference together and you brought kind of like the tribe together, that's all Cancerian, right?
Right.
But you did it in an Aquarian way, given the topics we were doing. And I think that's it was great. It was excellent, but I think that's rare to see. So people should really value. I still think about it. I was like, man, that was a great weekend we had.
Yeah, it's taken me a while to figure out this Mars and Cancer thing, because I've got it at 0 degrees and in the 8th house, and it's one of those energies that sometimes as a man, like it's kind of hard at times. It's like, because it's not always really direct and forward. But I've got a grand trine with Mars, Chiron, and Venus. So it seems to work out. I've got Chiron in Aries and then Venus in the 11th house groups. So it seems to work out in kind of a tribal way for me, where, I can move that energy into a kind of a productive and what's the word? Yeah, kind of a yang way, yang, but with a bit of a, kind of a listening side too, as well. So it took me a while to figure that thing out, man, because that Mars in Cancer bedeviled me for a lot of my life. I got a square with the sun too, so it can be a little chippy at times. But yeah, you know, I mean, that's the thing with astrology. I'm actually going to be working on a series of webinars over the next couple of weeks, and I'm probably going to put it all together this week so people can sign up for them next week, because I just have to map everything out. And it's really like using astrology as strategy, like astrological strategies, and understanding, you know, where you're weak in your chart, where you're strong in your chart, how to deal with mutability, how to deal with cardinality, you know, try to put this all together so people have some tools moving forward in 2021 that they can understand their chart more. They can understand, you know, how to actually navigate through these things. When you have a planet like Mars in Cancer, like, and you're a dude, and what do you do with it, right?
Yeah,
so,
or a Cancer man, because they get the same kind of thing.
That's a tough thing. I think it's one of the tough assignments is being a Cancer guy. It's not a death sentence, but you have to kind of understand more about the process.
Well, there's no good or bad. Things are what they are, but you know, Robert, there's some aspects that are easier to deal with than others. You gotta find, okay, what's the higher aspect I can write on, right?
Right, exactly. So people, maybe you clarify this. If you want to figure out what year you're in, you take your month you were born and the day you were born and add them up, and then add that to the current year. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would have to go back check it, but I'll post it in the comments. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's been so long, Robert. Like when I started out, I did everything by hand.
Yep, that's
and
the way
then
it was done.
I would basically spend maybe 2 hours on each chart, and I would handwrite all the things, and I would bring that stack of notes when I would do an in-person reading. And I probably did that for half a year, but then I'm like, okay, then I don't need to do that anymore. And now I can just like look at an app. I can just look at the numbers.
Right.
You know, so, but it's funny, right? Because we're men and then we're doing this thing. But then I think that for me, I had no other way to go. And it's also my interest. But it's funny because a lot of people consider like astrology or these esoteric things like, oh, that's a chick thing. That's like women's, that's what women do. But then you know what? Once you get into it, if you have the eyes to see, or you have this interest, it's extremely interesting. I don't know why more guys aren't into it, you know?
Well, I think they are. I think they're kind of getting there. I've been getting I get a lot of these Zoomer guys, these Generation Z guys.
Yeah.
And they're into astrology. Now, what's interesting is that they're also slightly, I wouldn't say cynical, but they're questioning, right? They're questioning what's going on, and they're not going all in and not buying all in. Every single one of them has had like some kind of philosophical, I wouldn't say reservation, but they had a filter, which I really appreciated. So I think we're going to see more of that, and I think it's really good.
Well, I always say, you know, I respect people more that are skeptical than would buy anything that I say. Yeah. Like you gotta have some, you know, back checking about anybody. You know, don't believe us. You know, you look. We're just pointing the way. You look into it and you tell us what you find. But yeah, I think it wouldn't. I mean, you're seeing it, but it's not surprising to me that the more we go forward, the more people in general are going to get into our kind of thing. But that's the thing, right? We've been the outsiders and weirdos for our whole lives, but now the fringe becomes the center, Robert.
Yeah. So, it's moving closer to us with every passing day. Hey, before you go, I wanted to play. Did you have a chance to check out that New Year's Eve in Seattle? Did you check that out at all?
Oh, didn't they have the projection over the?
Yeah, I wanted to play a little bit of it, and I wanted to get your take on it.
Okay, sure. I just saw the stills, so I haven't seen the video yet.
Okay, if you guys haven't seen this, what I'm going to play for you is the New Year's Eve presentation from Seattle. Okay, so this was the last place, theoretically, in the continental U.S. that would experience midnight. So this is like the last stage of midnight in the country. And what they did is they took the Space Needle, and that's, to me, I mean, we could talk about the Space Needle, the symbolism of the Space Needle, but they took the Space Needle and they did not do this in a live space, right? So they were not like firing everything up around the Space Needle. Like if you were downtown Seattle and you're looking at the Space Needle, you wouldn't see anything. But if you were at home and you were watching this on TV, well, that's a whole different story. So I'm just teeing this up. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'll play maybe like 3 or 4 minutes.
Sure.
But I want to get your take on it because it's very interesting on a number of levels. So let's do this. So this is Terry Morgan. This is the guy who sort of facilitated this event. You can see the Space Needle behind him. And he's talking about what they're doing and what they're going to do. And let's press play and go.
There are digital animators that work with me on the Borealis Festival, and we kind of came up with this concept of the sky mapping. They started coming up with some concept ideas and some images. I said, yeah, this is exactly where we want to go. This is a project that would normally take 6 months to generate, but because we got into this kind of at the last minute, we've got probably at least a dozen animators working 12 hours in the day, and then the computers are rendering the other 12 hours. So it's a good 2 months of animation time into this show. We hope that it makes people feel good about themselves, brings them some joy, brings them some hope.
All right, so here we go.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
That's a portal right there.
That's a little disturbing.
Oh, it gets more disturbing. Watch. Look at that.
Yeah, just totally random, I'm sure.
Looks a little Masonic there, doesn't it? Let's keep going. All right, now watch this. I'm gonna stop the frames here because there are images here that I don't have to go back and play it again. But just watch this thing. All right, look at that. Now, is that a rabbit? Is that a rabbit coming out of that egg?
Kind of looks like it, huh?
Right. So, okay, so here we go. Let's keep going. And look at that. What the? Now we're getting a little freaky deaky. Look at that. Right there. And then.
Oh, it's just the mantis, Robert. It's just the mantis beans.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah,
weird.
That's a little disturbing.
Now, don't they have jellyfish in the vaccine?
Yeah, well, maybe it's the kraken, little baby krakens.
Purple Revolution.
Uh-oh.
All right, so it goes on for a while, and eventually it ends in
well, it sure makes me feel good about myself, Robert, just like that guy said. Oh, boy. Robert, I have two thoughts. Number one, one thing about Aquarius, I would say maybe it's a lower aspect, is Aquarius can be fake.
Mm-hmm.
It's an artificial construct. But I had mentioned on Emily's show, I think one thing that we're going to be dealing with more and more is because your identity and probably even your physical appearance will be very malleable. And so when they, the whole they, them, gender, whatever, well, it's going to go beyond gender because you're going to see people, with the animal DNA and I'm half Jasper, but then the next day I'm half dog and whatever. It's going to become very difficult. Think how difficult it was for us to figure our stuff out, and we're just dealing with one body. But then in the future, you're going to have pretty much your external identity. It's going to be whatever you want it to be. But then who are you inside, right? Number two, I was thinking about it from a radionic perspective. So even though that was the 3D modeling on video, in point of fact, it could be used as some kind of a sigil or ritual. And that's just how it is. Because when you start dealing with the holographic energies, the way that we think things work are not really how they work. Because, in the radionics, basically it's a boosting or a projection of the thought form or intention, right? So you could just think something and keep thinking of it, right? Power positive thinking, Donald J. Trump, right? Yeah. Or you want to take it to the next level, you keep that intention, but then you write, just write the affirmation, right?
Yep.
You could go another step, make a hyperdimensional symbol like a sigil, but it'll work the exact same if you write it out on paper, but you could have the image on your black mirror here and put that on the broadcast plate. What? Yeah. Or check this out, Robert. You can have a USB stick with the photo files and put that on there. What? So is there any difference between this reel or this file of this video on somebody's hard drive if they wanted to do something with it? It's charged with intention.
Right.
So, and I'm sure some of these people are on psychedelics, these animators and stuff.
Oh, sure.
What kind of entities are they connected to?
I think it was, Miranda had a really funny comment. She said, see if I can find it. Let me go back here. She had a funny comment.
Yeah.
I hope I can find it. Hey, Brother Zygos in the house. It's kind of Brother Zygos. She said that this is the type of stuff that guys in art school did, right? And it's kind of true. I saw a lot of this kind of hanging out around the Earth Dance people and some of these high-end San Francisco digital rave graphic designers. I just think that the technology has gotten easier for them to use. Yeah. But here's where I think this thing is actually important in some ways. Is that because Seattle is technically like, if you look at the West Coast, the West Coast actually, Seattle protrudes that further than Los Angeles, right? Because the West Coast of the United States kind of comes in, like with a slight curve. So Seattle is really kind of the last part of the continental United States, not counting Alaska. So this is theoretically, it starts off in New York, with this bizarre kind of empty, vision of Times Square where everything was physical, right? Times Square was very physical. People were packed in. It was cold. They would kiss, and it was like a fucking ghost town. And then you had De Blasio and his weirdo wife with that weird set and everything. It was like just completely tacky. And that's where we would initiate the new year in, right? And it would be very physical, be in a lot of ways kind of very Capricornian in some ways, the Big Apple, skyscrapers, etc. Well, that was empty. And then everything ends pretty much in Seattle with this thing. But people are in their homes. They're not even out in physical space. And we get moved into a digital time, right? Or virtual time. And in New York, it was always about kind of the analog time, the cycle of time. 1 year would end and another one would begin. You'd see the thing tick off. But that's not what happened here in Seattle. It was completely virtual. So I don't think it was just a way to entertain people in their homes for the new year while keeping them safe. I think what that was doing, whether it was intentional or not, it was initiating people into a digital time or digital age or virtual time.
Well, Robert, like the time passes and the habits of people start to change even before we know it. Yeah. And I'm kind of disturbed by how many people use their, I don't know what they call them, those home devices where they're like, Alexa, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, so like, when do people start doing this so much, I go to, I won't say exactly who it is, but I go to a holistic practitioner and then I'm on the table and then the guy, and he's older than me. He's like, XYZ, I forget what device he has. And he goes, play so-and-so music. I'm like, can't you just push the button?
Right.
but with Aquarius, because it's that archetype of Lucifer, right? So it's like the convenience factor. You work smarter, not harder. So that's why technology is often involved, because technology does give you a lot of leverage to do things.
Absolutely.
But the lower aspect is, you give up your sovereignty and your freedom and your privacy for convenience. Like, well, if I could get $5 off on Uber Eats, I'll just like, they could put the camera on me, whatever. So, but you know what, Robert? What I was thinking is like, I'm not for communism or this techno slavery that they have incoming, but let me tell you, I could see myself as a communist dictator and say, all you MFs are sick, and I have no problem taking you techie people and go dig some ditches in the desert or something. Go live among the common people. You might learn something,
right?
Because it's just like, you can see this. This is just it's a mythological story, which is probably true, of how we always come to this point, and it's these scientist, priest, eggheads that they gain so much power, but their mentality is so unbalanced that
they're underdeveloped. They're way yeah. So it's kind of like, we're back in Atlantis again now, aren't we? Yeah, it's kind of what it feels like. We're back in Atlantis, and just before things got really weird in Atlantis. Tomorrow on my show, I'm going to play. It's a really interesting piece of video that I found. It was a group of young English teens. I'm thinking they're around 14 or 15, and it's from 1970. And they're asking them what the world is going to be like in 2020. and you'll be blown away by some of their answers. They're so prescient and on the money about what this world will be like. It's kind of mind blowing. I can't wait to play it tomorrow. It's an amazing time capsule. So if you guys like this, you'll be able to find more of that tomorrow.
Well, I think the culture, has been, I don't know how you say, it's very slack today. Where I'm not saying you have to be very uptight, but across the board, all the cultures, they were serious people.
These kids were very serious. They were very locked in and dialed in, and
because my grandfather, my mom's side, he was they call Meiji man, where it's it's military. Well, there's a reason why they love the German culture in Japan, because it's very to the rules and orient. Yeah, they were serious people. Yeah. And it's the same thing with the Slavs. It's they say well, these people are so dour, they don't smile, but they've been through so many things, and they were, the cultures. The thing is that it's not bad to be loose, but I think that people don't take things seriously. There's a time to take things seriously.
Absolutely.
And they, that Eastern Bloc, they look at you if you're smiling all the time like, this guy's a fool.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why we're here now in this situation is because we didn't take things seriously enough.
Yep.
We got super slack and super lazy and
isn't that what you were talking about? Does it have to play with the Dionysian and the Apollonian?
Yeah, I mean we were seduced into the Dionysic cycle, and the Dionysic cycle has run its course. And they know that, they being the social engineers or Mr. Global or whatever Catherine Austin Fitz wants to call it, but they know that, and they know that people are waking, they're waking up, and so they can't continue to run out the Morpheus, the sleep medicine. They can't run that out anymore because people are becoming immune to it. So now they're just going to try to shut everything down and just rip the guts out of this thing, and then start over with whoever is still around and willing to do their bidding and hang out with their robots. But I don't think it's going to happen. And it's going to get ugly because we are really in a nexus point, and that's the one thing that people need to understand. We're at a nexus point.
Well, what I see, Robert, and I see it with a lot of our people, and myself included, is that there's been a lot of shifting and even relationships breaking up, because I really feel like this year and the next few years is going to set the tone for the next 20 years. And sometimes that's tough because, again, it's that death and rebirth. It's we're kind of comfortable, or we value the relationships that we have, and it may even involve moving, and we might be separated from friends and family, but it has to happen. And I think the good side is a lot of us are going to start to hit a peak of our abilities, of people that are doing the holistic work, readers, and this kind of thing. So that's the good part of what I see. And it's going to be crazy this year, but I think that we'll be able to handle it, and we might even find some very interesting things. I have two things, Robert. So you were asking about life path, because when we're on the fly, sometimes the people in the chat, you'll see, you come on here sometimes on the fly, you can't think of it, because I was talking about life path, right? Robert wanted to know, how do you calculate your life path? It's the whole combination of the day, the month, and the year. But then if it comes down to 11, 22, or 33, then you have to consider that it'll be if it's 11, or that's 2, but it has an extra psychic channel element. 22, it's 4, but it has something extra. So it's a full combination of the birthday down to, to calculate it down.
Your personal year, though, I think it's your.
Oh, that was it. The personal year. Okay.
Personal year, it's the month, the day you were born. Add those up, and then add it to the current year, right?
Yeah,
that's how you do it.
So I even looked that up wrong. I have to go look again. I'll post it in the chat. But the other thing is, I wanted to ask you. So, some people were saying that we're now tips more into Aquarius than Pisces, right? We're 51%. That's true.
Oh, I don't know. I think we're way into Aquarius. I don't know what the percentage is.
Okay.
We're way into it now, and I was going to show some examples. But this is a
because I don't want to repeat because I had put that in my report, but then I want to confirm it with you that we're definitely more in Aquarius than Pisces.
Oh, we're definitely more in Aquarius, without a doubt. I mean, one of the things that that I wanted to talk about was how this thing looks, right? And when I say this thing, the super conjunction, in that it's like these forces are kind of vying for some form of dominance or control, even between Jupiter and Saturn. Like, we're seeing the Saturnian forces want to expand through Jupiter. We're seeing the Jupiterian forces, which want to expand, being pressed down on by Saturn. So it's this really interesting sort of dynamism. It's very complex, and it's not really cut or dry. It's not like we're going to have, magical fairy.
You're going to see both. You're going to see both.
Right. You're not going to have magical fairy tales, or we're not going to have K. Dick dystopia, but we'll have both.
I think, Robert, that it's not the end of the world, but we probably are in a kind of a harvest tribulation time. We're in it.
Oh, we've been in it for a couple of years, and this is it's been something I've been talking about, which is we're in a reckoning period.
Yeah.
And the reckoning is happening for us individually. It's happening for us collectively, from a planetary level. But let me just show really quickly here what I'm talking about, because it's a very disturbing video.
Okay.
But it's brief. Don't worry about it. It's a brief, disturbing video. And some of you have probably seen this. Let me find this thing. Hold on. I got to go back to my Twitter page. Have you seen this video of the party in Canada? Have you seen this thing?
Oh, no.
All right. So, boy, it is really, really something. And it's hold on a sec. Let me find that. All right. So, I'm going to show this. Okay. So this is a party that took place in Montreal, part of Montreal.
Okay.
And it's a house gathering of people in their homes. And this is what ensues over this gathering. Okay. Here we go. All right.
Fuck you! No, sir! Fuck you! Hey! Don't pull him over.
Il peut plus respirer, arrête! Arrête, il peut plus respirer!
Don't pull him over. Stay here. Get the fuck out. Don't fucking do that. Okay? Don't fucking do that.
Okay, calm down.
Stay fucking here.
Can we move? Okay?
Okay, we're calm. Don't do that.
J'ai un bébé.
We're people.
Hey!
Get the fuck inside. Get the fuck inside.
Non, lâchez-les! Lâchez-les, s'il vous plaît, là. S'il vous plaît, les gars, là. Hey, lâchez-les, là. Ils sont trois dessus, là.
Well, I'm gonna come out.
Hey, non, ils sont trois dessus, là.
Yeah?
Hey, ils sont trois dessus, là.
Get the fuck out in there. Jesus Christ.
Ça va être pire, la taille.
You fucking make things worse.
No!
So there you go. There's your Saturn in Aquarius, expanding its reach and power and totalitarian standards.
You know what's going to happen, Robert? That you know what? These cops, something's going to happen soon. Because even me, I was like, you know what? This is like a life-changing decision, but somebody, I might have to do something in that situation.
Yep. So just a little side note, the police in Canada are closer to the military. like they train like they're
the RCMP, right?
That's right, Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So they're not your typical, cop in the corner kind of guy. Those are people that are trained to do that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So,
and there's still a lot of people, Robert. I see it online all the time that, like, God, it's so bad here in the U.S. I wish I could just go to Canada.
Yeah,
really? Right. Or they're saying New Zealand, and New Zealand. I think maybe even Australia. They had like New Year's Eve, no masks, no nothing. But there's a reason, because they've submitted to everything. So they don't need to be masked up. They had that Janus ritual. They came after. I sent you some photos, right?
Yep.
These girls like, yeah, Happy New Year, and it's just like these people are in a total slave society. They've completed the reset.
That's right.
They're still working on us here.
Yeah. Oh, they haven't even gotten started on us really yet. But they got a problem. They have a problem with the U.S. And the problem is probably about 100 million guns. And huge amounts of ammo, and I know that the military have a lot of fancy equipment, LRADs, and all kinds of shit, and drones and stuff. But at the end of the day, I don't think they want to go there. I really don't think they want to go there. I mean, maybe it's a last resort for them if they want.
Well, see, now this may go against a lot of people's thinking, but I think that's another reason why they might want to put Trump back in, because it puts that side to sleep. And they might want to, just polarize the country more, which is going to break things down. Right now, there's no good.
There's a reaction. The left will react, and
but there's no good outcome at this point.
There's no easy way out of this,
because like if the Biden-Harris placeholders get in, everything will roll out at quadruple speed. But if Trump gets back in, he's obviously very hand-tied, and it's not going to be what people think they're going to get, But I'll tell you this, Robert. Americans, they have a couch lock, overweight, different kind of things like that. But let me tell you, there is something in this country that's being activated right now. I don't care if the country collapses and the U.S. does not exist as 50 states. You watch what happens when there's a kind of switch, and it's being flipped right now.
Agreed.
And them preppers that have been ready for this for decades, and there's a reason why things are going down to the south and in the heartland. That will never die.
Yeah. Well, and there's some really interesting phenomena going on too. Like they canceled the New Year's Day Rose Parade, and a lot of people were upset about that, right? But then what happened? They got about 2,000 cars down there to do a Trump parade. Like they said, screw it. We're just going to get our cars and we're going to do the Rose Parade, right? So again, that's another example of this Jupiter-Saturn super conjunction energy, because these parades, they're really group oriented, right? They're events, they're almost festival-like, which is very Aquarian. A lot of people together in one space, right? So the official Saturnian event didn't happen. So what did they do? They cranked up their cars, they cranked up their flags, and they took over the streets of Pasadena. And then they had the other version of it. See, this is what's happening now. We're starting to see this very interesting cycle. This kind of
and then we're living in literally two different realities that are overlapping too.
But they're not. But they're not indistinct from one another. They're feeding off of each other.
Other, yeah.
It's a very dynamic process that's going on right now, and it's we're involved in it here in the Hill Country. The mayor and the city manager and the city council decided to get all pissy and bitchy and make our lives more difficult by extending the mandate and make it even more difficult than it was before. So what's going to happen now? Now we're in a kind of this dynamic process.
Well, you know what? Even for the mainstream, they're about a year behind us, Robert. But even the average person, even if they're masked up, things aren't making sense. Like we knew when they said 2 weeks, it ain't going to be no 2 weeks, right? I originally said naively, it's probably going to be into the fall, and then after a few months, it's like, no, this is going to be
once they get their hooks in, that's it.
But it's like a lot of people, they're asking questions now. So I think that, obviously a lot of people are going to get sucked into this techno-feudal setup they're rolling out. But if you had unlimited money, you had hundreds and thousands of years to plan this. This is the best they can do. It's not really it's not working out. It's like the chess game, right? Their first move, and it was bunk. It didn't hit
right
as hard as they wanted to. It didn't tick as many boxes as they wanted to. So it's going to roll out. But I can tell you, not looking good, because what they really want is what they call full spectrum dominance, and that ain't going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. So anyway, what is happening is you and your website and all of your cool services. I just put your link inside the chat. It's akaida.com.
Right. It's akaida.com. I'm on Patreon, patreon.com/pyramid power. And I have this video I will probably repost on Akaida TV on YouTube. And this year, Robert, like we were saying, I felt for a while, but it's pretty much for sure now that this is the last year I'll be making pyramids in the same number in the way that I have been doing. So if people are interested in getting a powered pyramid and those kind of things, do it in the first 6 months of the year. It's not that I don't want to keep doing it, but this, if I move, I don't know, I have suppliers that I go to here in LA and everything. So I'll probably always be making pyramids, but just not in the number that I've been doing. But this is a change that, right? You got to be the juggler and be ready to. So even last year, I was thinking, if the supply chain stops, because I get like frequency generators and things from China, right? Then, or if I can't get some supplies like the crystals and things, okay, I'm going to focus more on readings and doing classes. This is what people should be thinking about. That at least have some options to go to in case something don't work out. And then a lot of immigrants is born in them, like the Jamaicans and people from Latin America. They got like 5 jobs and stuff, because they're coming from societies that are unstable. And this is what we're moving into. The Westerners are used to stability, but we're moving into a crisis, unstable period. So, just make it easier on yourself. Because if you're only thinking I'm doing it one way and I'm not going to deviate from it, that's not going to really work this year.
No, it wasn't working last year. But this year is going to be even more evident. So, figure out how to diversify, learn some new skills, learn how to grow some stuff, learn how to, maybe knit or patch things. I mean, some things that could be very usable. And I'm going to throw this out there too. I would love for more people to do their own media, right? I get people like, I know some people that are really, really good and they have a lot to say, but they don't really have the tools to do it, right? So not everybody needs to do a YouTube show. Not everybody needs to do a blog. Not everybody needs to do a podcast, but find a way to express yourself with these tools, because you never know what's going to come out of it. You never know what you're going to be able to do, who you're going to be able to meet. So and they're available to us, even though they're limited, they're available to us. So take advantage of them. And if you have something to say, or you have something that you want to create, like take time to do it. This is really kind of the time.
Well, Aquarius favors novelty.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We got some characters in our group, Robert. So
well, yeah.
Let your freak flag fly. And Gemini, TrueNet Gemini is the time to try everything. So just try it out, see how it works.
Right. Yeah.
So
many voices, one message. Right. So all right, Masaki, it's been great. Thank you.
All right.
For being here, and akaida.com. That's where you'll find him, and he'll come back here again one of these days, I'm sure. But happy New Year.
Also, a lot of people, they saw it, but I have my video from Hill Country, the lecture on the pyramids. It's up, and I'll post that link below. But
yeah. So that's on Vimeo.
Oh, I have it on Vimeo.
Yeah, go check that out. It's really, really good. All right, man. You take care of yourself. We'll talk soon. All right.
All right, Robert. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everybody.
All right, bye for now.
Bye.
All right. That's the great Masaki Miyagawa. Let's give it up for him. Always great to have him on the show here. He's this man. He's just so, what I love about Masaki? He's like Zen. He's kind of crazy. He's got like crazy Zen. That's his essence. It's always good to have him on here. So we're going to get into some astrology now. I'll probably go for about another hour and try to bust out some of this Trump stuff, some of this Pence stuff, and a few other things that I found to be interesting. One of the things that I saw, I'm going to show this to you guys. Somebody was talking about the UN, and this has been pretty much confirmed, although I think Siggy's in here, so maybe some of our friends from the UK can confirm this, if this is actually true. But apparently they were flying the UN flag over 10 Downing Street. Here we go.
That's what we're trying to figure out. Because that's above 10 Downing Street. I've never seen that flag before in my life. What is that? Anyone know what that flag is? Up there.
Planet Earth.
Because I ain't been there.
So is that the UN flag or not? What the hell is that? I can't quite make it out, but this is flying over 10 Downing Street. This is quite strange.
That's newly arrived. What is that flag?
New World Order flag, mate. Something like that.
Anyone know what this flag is? Flying above. Oh, United Nations, flying above 10 Downing Street. Where's the British flag gone?
So whether it's the UN flag or not, it's not the Union Jack. It is not the Union Jack. Siggy, can you confirm that if you're still around? That is not the Union Jack. It looks like it might be a picture of the Earth. Maybe it's the UN. But there we go. That's the symbol, right? And flags are symbolic of change. When one flag lowers, another flag rises, right, which is a symbol of a false flag, Sabian symbol. That's the UN flag. So we have the UN flag flying over 10 Downing Street. Somebody in chat said the UN is evil. Of course it's evil. It's despicable. It's absolutely despicable. I have the UN chart, by the way. It was started on October 27th, 1954. Pretty sure that's it. Just pop it up here. In some ways, it's an unremarkable chart, and especially for a global organization, I found it to be kind of unremarkable. I'll show you why. I'll throw it up here. I was trying to find the secret sauce of the UN. It has a lot of Cancer. This is a very Cancerian chart. We have Mars in Cancer, the aforementioned Mars in Cancer, and conjunct Saturn, and it's in the fourth house, which tends to be very domestic. And with Saturn in the fourth house, perhaps the message here is more than domesticity, but hierarchy in the home. And maybe this is this is kind of an interesting interpretation, that this would be an aggressive conjunction of Mars, Saturn into the home, right? With Saturn being the representation of the hierarchy or authority. And then we have the true node, which is also here in Cancer at 1 degree. That's interesting because that's that Sabian symbol with the flag. When one flag is on a ship at sea, one flag is lowered while another flag is raised. That's at 0 Cancer, which would move to 1 Cancer. That's quite interesting. So then we have the duality of the moon in Gemini, and we have a conjunction with Uranus, which is, again, slightly radical. And we would see the true node, transiting true node, being right about here, right about now, which would be a good time for the UN to make a move if they were going to make a move, like putting their flag up above 10 Downing Street. But this would be an Aquarian version of home, right, with the moon-Uranus conjunction. So in some ways, I can see where this would make sense. We have Pluto and Leo, What year is this? 54, 45. I got them inversed. Pluto and Leo right here, but they didn't waste much time, did they? War is over. UN, let's go. Rubber stamp this thing because the League of Nations didn't work. The United States did not sign off on the League of Nations. They were not. They said no, we're not a part of this thing. So they had to have another war. They have another fucking war to bring us into this thing. Ridiculous. Then we have Libra, Venus and Neptune. Maybe this is the woo-woo. Maybe this is the Coca-Cola commercial. The I'd like to teach the world to sing commercial. Then Jupiter, of course, makes it all just bigger and better, expanding. But it's actually a Scorpio, right? It's a Scorpio. Doesn't surprise me. It's a Scorpio entity with the 7th house. So it's about relationships. Interesting. But then the South, here's what's fascinating, is that the South Node is in the 9th house, which is not great for a global organization. Interesting. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. Not sure I get it. I get Capricorn on the midheaven. That's where my Saturn is, by the way. It's right on that midheaven. I get it. I mean, you'd want to have Capricorn on the midheaven if you wanted to be dominant. I get that. Totally. But the South Node, I'd rather have the North Node appear, the true node appear. I think it'd be more effective. Well, maybe that's the fly in the ointment. And maybe that's why the UN will not be successful in ultimately running the show. Let's hope so. All right, let's get into a little bit of Trump and Pence now. Let's see what old Mikey Pence is going to be up to on the 6th. So I have his chart right here. Now I don't have Pence's birth time, but I kind of figure that Pence, if there was a rising sign that I would attribute to Pence, and it actually kind of fits here based on this version of the chart. It would be it'd be Capricorn rising. It'd be Capricorn rising. Pence feels like a Capricorn rising character to me, very reserved, and so he would also have Saturn on the ascendant in Capricorn. Now, what I did is I took this is interesting because they're going to start this thing at 7 a.m. on the 6th. So I really don't need to know what time Mike Pence was born because I'm using the anchor of them opening the doors at 7 a.m. in Washington, D.C. on the 6th. So that means that Mike Pence's planets will constellate around that event, okay? So let me show you this. All right. Now, again, I don't know his time, but he strikes me as a Capricorn rising. And Saturn, always serious. Always fucking serious. And by the way, very ambitious as well. We can see that he has Sun, Gemini, Mercury, Gemini, and then he has a moon, new moon in Gemini. He and Trump are opposites. Trump has his moon in Sag. Pence has his moon in Gemini. And Pence has a lot of Leo in his chart. He's got that Venus-Mars conjunction, which is one of those conjunctions that's like, well, I mean, he was gay at one point, wasn't he? I mean, that's one of these conjunctions that lends itself to bisexuality. In my estimation, Venus-Mars conjunctions, especially when they're tight, can lend them, not in all cases, but it can lend themselves to bisexuality. Jeffrey Epstein had Venus-Mars conjunction in what sign? Aquarius. And then today's birthday girl, Greta Thunberg, she's got that Venus-Mars conjunction in Scorpio, just like her soulmate, Kyle Rittenhouse. So he's got a lot of Leo in his chart. Checks in. Mike Pence is 1 year older than me. That's a trip when I think about it. That guy's 1 year older than me. He looks like and feels like he's about 15 years older than me. That's another story. He's got, let's see, Pluto and Virgo at 0 degrees. His true node is in Libra. And he's got Neptune in Scorpio, generational. And he has Jupiter also in the sign of Scorpio. So when I made him a Capricorn rising, that put Neptune kind of on his midheaven, which for a guy that's so religious makes some sense. But check this out. At 7 a.m., and it's going to, the Saturn's going to be moving kind of further into the first house of this event, right? Because the wheel is going to go this way. Right? It's going to go this way. It's going counterclockwise. So as the day progresses, Mike Pence's Saturn is going to start to hit all these planets right here in Capricorn. And he's starting the day off with Saturn right on the freaking ascendant. So he's a player. He is a player. What can we kind of infer from this? Well, I mean, unless somebody has really torqued him, I would tend to think that Pence would lean into being very conservative with this event, with Saturn here. I don't think, let's say he had Neptune. Let's say his Neptune was on the ascendant at the time of the event. That'd be different. That'd be maybe a little more wishy-washy, a little more, I don't know, messianic about the whole thing. But it's not. It's Saturn. And so he is, if I have a beat on Pence, and I kind of think I do, I think that Pence is trying to angle for leverage. All politicians do it, and he's a Gemini, and he's got Mercury in Gemini, conjunct the Sun and Moon in Gemini. So he is, let me just make sure. No, it looks like his Moon is in Cancer. My bad. I thought it was in Gemini. I just wanted to double check. He's got that Moon in Cancer at 4 degrees. That's interesting. Very interesting. So what is his Moon is conjunct the true node of the UN, right? The UN chart. Anyway, my sense around Pence is that he is a political animal, an absolute political animal, and that he would be angling for leverage during this time because he knows that that if he doesn't get certain things or do certain things or is able to do certain things, that he is not going to, number one, be relevant. He won't be relevant. He said he would get out of politics, whatever. I don't know, maybe. But I think he'd be angling for some kind of leverage. And maybe the leverage is just to fucking stay alive. I don't know. But with Saturn here, he's coming in with some kind of authority. Obviously, I mean, he's going to adjudicate. He's going to run this thing. And his Saturn is going to hit every single one of these planets. So Mike Pence is a game changer. He is a game changer. Now, what I mean by that is that he could either change the game for one side or the other. Mike Pence, to me, this Saturn in Capricorn on the ascendant in this moment really typifies who he is and where he's at and where we're at. Like, this guy is going to play a pretty significant role in the history of the United States. And he's to me, he's an oddball, and I don't trust him. I certainly don't trust him. But he is definitely, he's got the hammer right there. There's also some oppositional energy going on here with Venus and Mars and they're opposing Saturn and Jupiter, which is kind of interesting, right? Because Saturn and Jupiter, Aquarius, again, we're talking about group energy, cracking this sort of new consciousness open. And Leo tends to be, again, very self-interested. So this is why I think Pence is trying to work out a deal. He's trying to get something out of this thing with this Venus-Mars conjunction. And Pence may not look like somebody that has a big ego, but I think he does. I think he's got a bigger ego than people may understand, especially with this Venus-Mars conjunction. And then here we go, double vertex, right? His vertex is actually meeting theoretical. It's his theoretical vertex. But his Uranus is definitely in conjunction with the vertex being the second ascendant. So he's also a bit of a wild card here with Uranus. This is, from an astrological perspective, very interesting synastry. We have the true node conjuncting his sun and Mercury right here, almost midpointing. This is very important, which means, again, that he's dialed into this moment, right? Just like Trump with the true node, like Trump, the true node whenever Trump's there. Trump and Pence's suns are fairly close. I think Trump is, 20, 23, 24. Gemini, Pence is 16. So the true node is actually moving closer. It's actually moving away from Trump's sun. It peaked right on the election. It's moving closer to Pence's sun. Now, Pence is in square. His sun is in square with transiting Neptune. That's always tricky because, well, the person's identity and the person's raison d'etre are not solid, right? Anytime you get a Neptune square, especially with the mutable planets, they're all over the place. I think we've already seen him waffle a couple of times in the last week, from what I understand. He's going away to Israel. Oh, nope, trip's canceled. He's saying no to Louis Gohmert. Oh, he's going to represent the electors. So we don't really know with him because, well, number one, he's a Gemini, and Geminis, you don't always know. I'm sorry, I'm not dissing Geminis. If you're a Gemini, you know what I'm talking about, or at least part of you does. Now, with the Sun Neptune square, he becomes even less predictable. But we do know that his Saturn is going to be right on the ascendant. And that is a heavy duty energy to initiate this event. This is, in some ways, fated. Like Mike Pence's life is like coming down into this kind of funneled moment, right? This funneled moment. And it's right here. It's right here. And his Neptune is on the midheaven of the event as well, which is, you know, again, it's fluidic and it's not really stable. You know, I would say that in this case, this is where Pence's God trip would come into play. You know, his God trip would come in with Neptune up because he tends to be like this super theoretical, super religious guy. I don't trust super religious people. That's just me. But at the same time, his Neptune is in opposition to transiting Mars and also Uranus and the fourth house here, the IC. I mean, even look at this, right? The IC, this is going to be a radical fucking event. This is in Washington, D.C. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is just the energy for the day. Man. This is going to be nuts. I'll tell you what it won't be. It won't be normal. It won't be like Biden, Michigan elects Joe Biden, Texas elects Donald Trump. It's not going to go like that, number one. It's not going to go like that. I don't know how it's going to go. It's not going to go like that. And even if it did come down to Biden being, quote unquote, certified by Pence, do you think those people in Washington, D.C. are just going to go, hey, it was a great trip. Can I get a couple of T-shirts and some ball caps before I leave here? Got any MAGA caps? Are there special Washington MAGA caps I can get before I leave and go back home and shoot myself? Right, that's not going to happen. I'm telling you, that's not going to happen. And even from just like a symbolic sort of language here, you know, this is really interesting because it's almost like we have, you know, from the runic script, this looks like Sowelu, right? This is like the lightning bolt Sowelu, but it also from the runic script looks very much like breakthrough, right? This would be breakthrough. This is the rune for breakthrough. This is really fascinating. Wow, this is some heavy shit. And even with Pence's Venus and Mars, man, they're in conflict here. They're in conflict with Taurus. They're in conflict with transiting Mars. Wow. This is something. This is really something. All right, here's where I think the chaos could get super high strange. And I'm not saying this because I want it to happen. But what if, and there is like a weird placement of his Pluto in the 8th house. Now, luckily, it is not conflicted, with the exception of this in conjunct right here. In conjunct with, what is we looking at? Looks like it's in conjunct with, so Saturn, Pluto, Mercury, Pluto. That's kind of, to me, that's kind of interesting. This in conjunct, this thing that is, it's an equation that is difficult to resolve. And his moon comes into play, which means we're probably looking at what? A sextile, right? We're looking at, he's got a yod. This is a yod. So he's got a sextile between his moon and Pluto, which he does. Moon at 4 degrees, Pluto at 0. That's a sextile. Bang. And they're both yodding right in to this point over here. Wow. Wow. You know, the topper on this would be like an assassination attempt on Mike Pence's life. Like, what happens if something happens to Pence? Like, wouldn't that just like throw everything into a whole nother universe? And again, I'm not wanting anything to happen to Mike Pence. But, you know, when I look at a chart like this, it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if something that unusual took place. Like, this is not just going to be business as usual at all. And he's got this yod to reconcile. Man, that is intense. That is very intense. Well, Michael Pence, you have your life has come into a tiny pinpoint spotlight, and it's directly on you. Directly on you. I wouldn't want to be him, quite honestly, unless I was like so fucking Machiavellian, and I'm only a little Machiavellian, that I could use this thing to really, you know, get some serious leverage out of the deal, whatever that is. Be promised to become president in 2024. Maybe my thing was always like, okay, but not always, but just recently, his deal would be make a deal, go to bat for Trump. Trump gets in, but the deal is that Trump steps down in 2 years and Pence becomes president in 2 years. And then Trump's side of the deal is son-in-law 666 becomes the VP. That would be the deal that I think Pence would make, which is why I was surprised that he was getting on a plane and going to the land of milk and honey, the land of milk and honey traps. What do you guys think? What do you think of that chart? What do you think of that chart? So the birth chart is like our screenplay for our lives. It's the part we're born to play. In some ways, it evolves that way. Yes, there are permutations, and there's wiggle room, right? There's wiggle room. There's choices we make in our lives that determine, how our timeline unfolds. Clearly, the choices he's made have put him into this moment at this time with Saturn on his ascendant. Pence going to jail. His first instinct was to do his duty, then escape to Israel, but he knows he can't. Whatever his duty is. Venus on galactic center, trine his Pluto, might help him to do the right thing. What is the right thing? Who defines what the right thing is now? Is the right thing defined by the people who have a very good cause to believe that the election was stolen, and that he plays the role in basically saying, we're going to pump the brakes on this, we're going to do it this way? Is that the right role? Or is it the right role saying, look, we had an election and we're going to hold up the Constitution. We're going to hold that up. We're going to go through this process the way it's supposed to be. People are going to have different ideas about what the right thing is. So I don't think Pence will go to jail. Who knows with Pence? He's so robotic, hard to get a read. Apparently, I've heard that there's been a robot or a clone Trump inside the White House. Like, whoever's been at the White House is not Trump. And that's been part of the strategy. This thing is a hall of mirrors now. It's a Gemini hall of mirrors. Galactic Center knows the right thing. Let's go back. Let's go find that Galactic Center. So let's see. Where's his Venus? Let me see. So his Venus is in Leo. His Venus is in Leo. How, I'm not sure. He has his, where's his true note? Oh, it's the Venus of the moment. Right. Right. Got it. It's the Venus of the moment. Okay. I had to check that out, Stacy. It's opposing his sun. It's opposing his sun, Mercury. So is that going to be like a super great attractor, or is he going to be in opposition to doing the right thing? It's going to be interesting. So what does his chart with Trump look like these days? Well, let's find out. Okay. So I've got the Donald on the inside ring right here. Where is he? Oh, yeah. So we know what time Trump was born. And you can see how connected they are in a weird way, right? These are their conjunctions, just sort of, kind of balled up there at the top of Trump's chart. So while I don't think Pence was a great choice as a vice president, I'm not even sure how he got in there. But what I do know is that astrologically, these guys are like two peas in a pod. Now, his moon is in a different place. Like his moon is in Cancer, and Trump's got that Sag moon with the South Node. But Trump's moon is in the fourth house. So, the fourth house is the ruler of Cancer, and he's got moon in Cancer. So there is some traction there, but there is the moon opposition to not only Trump's sun, but his own sun and his own Mercury. What else did I think was interesting? Here, this is the part that I did not like about Pence's chart with Trump, is his Mars is in Trump's 12th house. And that is an aspect of the hidden enemy. I don't care what sign it's in. Like, that's a heavy aspect right there in his 12th house. This is somebody I wouldn't trust. I wouldn't trust, especially in Leo, and especially within hailing distance of Trump's Pluto. And then his Uranus is conjunct Trump's Pluto. And you know what else is there? Jared Kushner's true node. So here you have the trinity of Pence's Uranus, Trump's Pluto, and Kushner's true. I could totally see a deal coming out of that. Totally. And his Pluto is on Trump's ascendant. When I saw that, I thought, man, that's a heavy, and I saw that a long time ago. Like when I first did this synastry between the two of them, I think I was on Regina's show. And this Pluto conjunction is very powerful, and it's very faded, and in some ways is a specter of death, right? I mean, it is a specter of death. There's intensity here with his Pluto on Trump's ascendant. I wouldn't have had this guy as my vice president. I mean, I get this I get, like that party, but this and this, are you kidding me? Come on. This is like keep your friends close and your enemies, sleeping in the, bunk bed beneath you. I just think this is problematic, especially this. with Mars in the 12th house. And then he's got his south node in Trump's 8th house, which again is, there's this, if he hasn't resolved his Aries issues in this lifetime and is hasn't figured out that he's here to blend and be, synergistic and be a bridge. And maybe he has, maybe he has, but if he hasn't done that, then with his south node, like if Mike Pence still has power issues and control issues, and his south node is in Trump's 8th house, that's sketchy. That's sketchy. And I think that that Trump would figure him out at some point. But here, we have this cluster, Juno and Juno, Sun, right? So they have some things in common. They have some things that I think actually kind of work in their chart. And then they have some other things that I think, especially for Trump, don't work at all. I actually think that Pence is a conduit for money for Trump. What do I mean by that? Well, I think Pence is really connected to the evangelical community, and I think Trump gets money from the evangelical community. He got it from them in the first election, and I think even the second election. Here we have Neptune, second house. So I think Pence is a money connection for sure with Trump. What else do we have here? And then his Saturn is in Trump's 5th house. No fun. He doesn't hang out with Mike Pence. I can tell you that right now. I'm not sure who Trump hangs out with. He doesn't have a very fun 5th house. But I know he doesn't hang out with Mike Pence, not with Saturn there. That's business. Business only. And Pence's Jupiter is on Trump's IC. That's really interesting as well. Again, I think that's around resources. That's definitely around resources. Especially with Scorpio, other people's money. So I think this is a marriage of political convenience. I do think that there's some things that they kind of innately understand with each other. But at the end of the day, I think that this is somebody that would not be trustworthy at all inside of this this partnership. Not with Mars here. Nope. Not at all. But I do think it's interesting that we have Uranus, Pluto, and then the true node from Kushner all aligned here, which gets into perhaps behind the scenes deal making land. Okay, what do we got? First dance inaugural night, Trump was dancing and Pence reached out to grab his arm. Wouldn't really look him in the eye. Pence is a weirdo, man. Trump is weird too, by the way. But he's kind of funny weird. Like Trump is funny weird. Like Trump has actually got a sense of humor. Pence, I don't know. Could you imagine Mike Pence trying to tell jokes? Maybe there's a whole other side of him that we don't know or see. Oh, I know there is. But I'm not going to get into that here. Pence was chosen as VP to make the evangelical. Absolutely he was. But I don't think he was needed. Evangelicals would have backed Trump anyway. To me, Pence is Donald Trump's Lyndon Baines Johnson. He's Trump's LBJ. And he helped him get Indiana, which is kind of an anchor state, in that area where it's connected to Ohio. And then, through Ohio, you get kind of close to Kentucky, and then there's Michigan and Illinois sort of in play. So I think having that anchor, just like how Kennedy brought in LJB to get the so-called Southern vote because he was a carpetbagger from Massachusetts. I think it's similar. I'm surprised that Pence stuck around so long. I would have replaced him, but whatever. Pence is also very tight with Israel, super tight with Israel, and so is Trump. But I think it's different. I think they have a different relationship. Trump, let's see, dry as a popcorn fart. Yeah. Pence is creepy. He's like a robot, man. Although I will say he was the perfect person to go up against Kamala Harris because she was like so histrionic, and that guy is just like Mr. Flatline. That debate was actually more interesting than the two fiascos with Trump and Robotoid Joe. I wanted to do a couple of other things here. So I wanted to look at this one chart of February 11th, because this is where the new moon is. This is a pretty intense chart. Where am I? So this is the chart that mirrors what we call the Antichrist chart from 1962, because of this, this army of Aquarius, and we're about 9 days out of like this is past that. This is past the 120, way past it. I mean, Heather and I played around with this chart, and man, the more that I look at this chart and the more that I see what's happened since Heather and I first talked about this chart, the more I'm convinced that this is big time conflict right here. This is big time conflict. When you get these fixed energies going off against one another, holy shit. Like I think January and February, especially February is going to be lit. It's going to be totally lit. Like there's not too many ways out here. We have a trine with Mars to Neptune. Sextile Mars to Neptune, and that's pretty much it. Right? And you've got Chiron doing some sextiling, but man, this is you got a Mars Pluto trine, which can be good. In some ways, I mean, Mars Pluto trines are good. Don't get me wrong, but in an environment like this where it's really heated, the Mars Pluto trine only becomes stronger, I think. So Mars Pluto trines are about power, and we're dealing with Earth signs here. So this is about Earth and land and occupation. This is occupation. This is like an occupation chart. This is going to be very intense. Very intense. Look, after the 6th of January, it is not going to be business as usual. It is not going to be business as usual, no matter how this thing goes down. And I just see this energy as being super radical. Super, super radical. We've got these two conflicts going on. We've got the conflict between the election, theoretically, and what happened there. And then we have the COVID conflict and what's going on with the police, right? So no matter what sign Mars is in, it does represent martial energy. So here we have Mars, and Taurus tends to be, sort of the people. It's very kind of street or rural, indigenous, right? Taurus tends to be indigenous. And here it's going off against all this super high-tech Aquarian energy. It also represents money. Taurus represents money, the coin of the realm. I mean, this is a chart where somebody wants to get, it's like it's a violent birth. This is what it feels like, a violent birth. When I think of this, this is like Birth of the Nation 2.0 or something like that. And I wonder if this would be a chart where somebody like the Antichrist would appear, or the Antichrist energy would begin to manifest itself into the world. Because with that chart, it would be prime territory. It would be the perfect environment for the figure who comes to save the day, right? To come in and save the day. And especially because it's so connected to that February 1962 chart, which is often referred to as the Antichrist chart. So whether or not the Antichrist is going to appear, the energy around this thing feels very Antichrist-like, because it's disruptive, it's revolutionary, there's a high degree of feeling very unsafe. And even though it's happening, I did it for Austin, this is a global energy. It's not just the United States. It's a global energy. So we're entering into a period of really massive and convulsive change. That's the word I would use, convulsive. And some of it will be good, because for some people, they're going to need to have, these kind of ironclad blinders away from their faces in order to see what's going on. And some people will get shaken loose, trust me. A lot of people are really scared. And a lot of people are going through their little Stockhausen syndrome, right? They're identifying with their captors, and, they love Fauci and all that shit. But even this will shake some of those people out, or they'll drive them further into isolation. So we are headed for some really intense times. Really intense times. I wanted to show you China's chart. There's something really interesting going on with China's chart. So China is an Aquarius rising. This is the one with, let's see what this is. Oh, February 11th, right? I did one with China and the U.S. China and the U.S. have, their synastry is really, really a trip. And based on the two charts between China and the U.S., I hate to say this, but man, China really has the upper hand in the synastry. I'm telling you, has the upper hand in the synastry in some ways. Maybe I'll pop it up here, but look at what we got. China's going through a rebirth. Saturn right there, coming out of their 12th house, and the Saturn emergence for China was when they got through with COVID, and then we had to take on the Chinese protocols for COVID. That's when Saturn hit China's ascendant. It's starting a new 30-year cycle for China. And what Masaki said is very interesting about cleaning out, right? Cleaning out, because that's what they did. That's what China did in 2019. They cleaned out. They cleaned people out that they didn't like. A lot of those people that they took off the streets of Wuhan were dissidents. So China was cleaning out. That's exactly what they were doing. And then they were theoretically passing on this virus, which I think isn't really much of a virus, but it does make people sick. Don't get me wrong. But what they were doing is resetting. Right there they are now. I mean, look at this. On this day, right, the 11th of February, China is going to have all these planets in Aquarius sitting right in its first house. And you don't think China follows Western astrology? Of course they do. I don't know if they follow sidereal astrology or not, but they follow Western astrology. And they know this. And if I was China's Western astrological advisor, I would say, you know what? This is your time to make a move. Like, it's not going to get much better than this for you as a country to expand your influence in that global Aquarian CCP Great Resets kind of way. Now, Saturn will be here and Jupiter will remain, and eventually Pluto will come around, but China's never going to have this assemblage of planets right there on its ascendant. So I would say that China is very good at being stealthy, obviously. But I would say that this is a time where they may be less stealthy. They may be much more direct in what they're wanting to actualize. And even here with Mars in Taurus, again, just for this day, squaring their Pluto and Mars square, right? This is a high conflict day for China. This period with Mars going through Taurus is a high conflict period because they've got that Mars-Pluto conjunction in Leo. Very proud. Very, very proud, Mars-Pluto. And they have all these planets in Libra. See that? Mike Pence will get along really well with China. So this is a notice. This is a serious notice around China, and right around this time, 10th, 11th, 12th, of February. And this is a high conflict zone right here, especially with all these Aquarian energies that they're dealing with. Like this again, if I'm China, fuck, I'm making a move. I'm doing everything I can in my power to tap into these Aquarian energies. Well, what is that? Well, it's things like the internet. It's things like internet protocols. It's also their relationship with subordinates or surrogates, right? Surrogates. Friends, because Aquarius rules friends of China, right? That they would call in a bunch of favors. That's what would happen. They would call in a bunch of favors. Now, the one thing here is that because of the opposition with Pluto Mars, there could be some outside pressure on China here, right? That would be impacting their Pluto Mars conjunction, because there's nothing really harmonic happening with Pluto Mars. In fact, in some ways, it feels quite defensive. Anyway, keep your eye on China. Second week in February, even leading up to the second week of February, especially if this country, and I pray that it's not. I'd like for us to basically be one country again, even though we haven't been one country in a long time. But we were more one country at one point. Like, if you go back and watch reruns of The Tonight Show, you'll have people on there who were lefties, you have people on there who were righties, and they cracked jokes and they made fun of each other. But it wasn't like they were going to, take one of Johnny Carson's drumming pencils and, poke the other person on the couch in the eye. It wasn't like that. There was more latitude. People allowed each other to save face more back then. And I'm sure that they, behind closed doors, they were very adamant and very intense about their politics, but they didn't do it in public, right? They really didn't do it in public. There was more of this kind of saving face. We don't have that anymore. We've totally lost touch with that. There was another day that I wanted to show you guys, and then I'm just going to kind of wrap this up by giving you some things that I think are probably going to go down this year. So this was, this is the China chart. What's it? Let's see. Where's that other chart? All right. It was the August chart. August of this year. I talked about it with Masaki, and I might have taken it out. But it had to do with August. It was August 24th. So right now, August, hold on, I have it here. That's 1939. It's when Jupiter is in opposition with the sun. So you have Jupiter, Earth, and then the sun. And that is, I'll tell you right now. And it's a retrograde. So it's the sun. Where is it? Yeah, it's right here. Looks like it's quite late. It's August 29th. So yeah, August 20. No, it's August 20th. August 20th, not 20th, August 20th. So the sun will be at 27 Aquarius and then 7 Leo, August 20th, 8:20. Interesting. Well, one of the things that's interesting about that day is the proximity to Jupiter. It's really close, super, super close. And then we have these two suns, right, in our solar system. You know, these these binary suns. Even though Jupiter's a planet, it's very gaseous, almost sun-like. And that's going to be a really interesting time because I feel like we're on sort of this. We're in the middle between sort of the way things have been done and then the way things are going or where they're going to go. And that's a long time from now, even though it'll happen very quickly. A lot will take place between now and then. And it to me, that's where we get into this split, this idea that we're literally like having this V, right? This V in terms of our experience, because Jupiter will be over here and the sun will be over here, and Jupiter represents the new thing, and the sun, you know, is a kind of an echo of the past in some ways, and it's not bad, right? I mean, it's not a bad thing, and there's some things that have been good about where we've been, but we're not going back. We are not going back, and that is the lesson of Aquarius: is detachment. And that we have to begin to detach ourselves from this idea of our world returning to where it was before. It's not going to happen. And that doesn't mean that there aren't certain things that we can't bring with us on the journey and into the future. And if we're smart, we distill the best of what we had and we bring them forward. If we're smart, right? If we're not smart, then we're kind of hanging out there in the wind. And because I think there are things from the past that are definitely worth saving, and the things that we took for granted are the things that are worth saving. You know, like I think a lot of us, you know, took the idea of family for granted, and in divorce and all the, you know, all this shit that became so prevalent and so easy, the dysfunction, the enabling, the toxicity, the generational trauma. I mean, all those things that lead into the breakdown of the family. And in a lot of ways, we took that for granted. And there are things about family that I think we're going to find out that are very important. Very, very important, especially like from that video in Canada where you see these jackboot motherfucking thugs going in and breaking up a little family party, right? I mean, that's kind of the things that we need to start to think about. Because there are things about families, there are things about children, there are things about simple ways of being that we certainly have lost touch with. Those things are valuable and those are worth bringing forward. Friendship, loyalty, commitment. These are things that are valuable and they're worth bringing forward. So it's not like we're leaving the past completely behind, but the narrative, the historical narrative of the past is going to go away. And how we're going to define the future is really dependent upon how we live from moment to moment and the choices we make and the thoughts that we have and all the things that go along with that. There's no coincidence that you wind up in certain places. You wind up in certain places because you made certain choices. You made certain choices based on your level of conscious awareness. And if you have good conscious awareness, you made good choices, guess what? More than likely, you're in a good place. Doesn't mean your life is perfect, but you're in a pretty good place. If you made, you know, bad choices, didn't have a lot of conscious awareness for whatever reason, there's no judgment there. You know, some people have been dealt really hard hands. Then you're probably in a not so good place, you know, but that doesn't mean you have to stay there, by the way, either. So this is that August time, I think, is really critical, really, really critical, because to me, that's where 2021 is headed. That August 20th date with the opposition of Jupiter and the sun and the earth. And I feel like this year, this is a hard year to predict. Last year was an easy year to predict, by the way, because I could see it, right? You could see it with Saturn. And Saturn, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, we're running out of time. And it was easy to see when the time was going to run out, and you could kind of see the storm clouds on the horizon, and it wasn't going to be business as usual. Just wasn't going to happen. This year is going to be a little bit more difficult because there's so many factors in play, particularly that super conjunction which is going to be playing itself out now for 20 years, right? The super conjunction is a 20-year cycle. And we've already looked at sort of the dynamic interplay between Saturn and Jupiter in this Aquarian kind of free-for-all. And it really hasn't even begun to shake itself out yet. So it's going to get really, it's tricky, like predicting, especially with Gemini too. We've got Gemini in the mix and the true node, Gemini. So things are they're a little sketch. But I do think these are some of the things I think that I do think you can pretty much count on and bank on. Number one, chaos is a given. You just know it, understand it. It's a given. You're going to see strange alliances begin to take place. Strange alliances. I can already sense it and start to see it happen, because guess what now? These people that have been out there, protect the blue, protect the blue, protect the blue. Guess what the blue is doing? The blue is cracking their fucking heads. The blue is making life difficult on people, right? That's what's going on. So you're going to start to see some strange alliances. You're going to start to see some of the left and some of the right start to come together. And that's going to be interesting. That'll be interesting. You're going to, you may not see Patriots and Antifa start to hug it out, but they're going to start to move closer together. Why? It's because the power structures, doesn't matter who they are. Doesn't matter. Look, if Pence and Harris are in power, Antifa fucking hates Pence. They hate Pence. They're not into Pence. I'm sorry, Biden. I keep going. They kind of look alike in a weird way. Anyway, if Biden and Harris are in power, Antifa's not going to love it. Black Lives Matter might like it because they'll have a straight pipeline. They'll have a straight pipeline through Harris to Pence, and you saw that Brady Bunch Zoom meeting that they did. They'll love it, but I'm not sure Antifa will. Antifa are anarchists. They're nihilists, and they hate fascism. And if they think that, and even though they're hired guns too, but if they think that Joe Biden's a fascist, and he could easily be a fascist, they're not going to like it. They're going to hate it, right? And then now you're going to have a disaffected group on the right who, number one, won't recognize Biden, and number two, if Biden is rolling out the WHO, the CDC plan for the COVID, you think people are going to like that? No. So you're going to start to see some strange alliances. That's what Aquarius does. Aquarius brings groups of people together that are at times quite disparate. You go back, you look at the festivals of the 70s, it was like the Rainbow Tribe. And but so you're going to see strange alliances this year. You're going to see people kind of hooking up and joining forces you didn't think were kind of, it's even happening now. Like Trump wanted the $2,000 stimulus. Mitch McConnell wanted $6,000. Who else wanted $2,000? Bernie Sanders. So again, it's very superficial, but even Trump and Sanders are kind of on the same page for that, right? We're going to see more of that. And I think it's good, actually. I think it's good. This polarity between these two systems is really stifling and quite dangerous, actually. Now, at one point, maybe it had some merit. I don't know. But we're going to see some interesting things happening around that. I think there's also going to be a real kind of power grab around technology. We're going to see a real power grab around technology. And I feel like that there are going to be some technologies that will be introduced this year that are not on schedule, right? They have controlled, they being the managers, right? The planetary managers, the consensus reality. They've controlled innovation for quite a long time, or maybe forever. But we really haven't gotten anything more innovative than this. This is the one little, bone they've thrown us. I feel like we're going to see some innovations that are going to come online off schedule. I don't know how they're going to get there, but they're going to get there. And some of these little innovations are going to be kind of game changers. Like there'll be disruptive technologies. And when I say disruptive technology, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be like a physical technology. It could be a soft technology. It could be a program, but we're going to see some stuff that's innovative this coming year, because that's the nature of Aquarius, right? It's disruptive. So some of that's going to trickle into the narrative of 2021 and will make it more interesting. And it could actually kind of, again, upset the sort of the balance of power a little bit. So be ready for a few game-changing off-schedule technologies to be introduced. That's going to be, I think, kind of a good thing, by the way. We have the bad technologies. They're already out there. We know what the bad technologies are. They're the vaccines or the operating systems. So they've already been introduced. And so the universe is very balanced. So the universe will produce something else as a result of this. And this is, it's human nature. We're disruptive beings. It's just who we are. So that's going to happen. I think the idea around intimacy is going to be really challenging in 2021. I don't think it's a year that is going to be bursting with kind of this overwhelming feeling of intimacy. I feel like we're dealing with Aquarian energies, and Aquarian energies are very dispassionate and they're very detached in a lot of ways. They're good for making friends and bonds and networks and groups, but there's not a lot of there's not a lot of passion and amore in the air for 2021. Although there can be some interesting things happening just in terms of variety, kind of maybe weird sexuality. I wouldn't be surprised if we get another upgrade in sex bots in 2021. It would not surprise me at all, being that we're dealing with this emergent Aquarian sort of paradigm that's coming into being. So I could easily see that, but I don't think it's a great year for, and we haven't been in a great year for that for a while now. We haven't been in it for a while. When Jupiter goes into Pisces, maybe a little bit more of that. Maybe. Although we're going to be dealing with Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces. That's going to be nuts. We will have Jupiter going to Pisces briefly this year. Very briefly. And that in of itself will be quite interesting. It's almost like a window into a new reality for a minute, and then it goes away. Right? It goes away. And I would be surprised if it was some sort of like a religious phenomenon. We might see some more religious phenomena this year, although I tend to think that we'll see more of that when Jupiter is in Pisces. But there was a story of a young guy on New Year's Eve in Argentina, a 13, 14-year-old, and it's kind of an amazing story, actually. There was some gunfire that went off, and a bullet hit him in the chest, and he was wearing a crucifix, and it hit him right in the freaking crucifix, and it didn't go through. The crucifix stopped this bullet. In fact, there wasn't even really a dent on the crucifix, right? So I think we're going to start to see a little bit more of that, and I think really around that Jupiter and Pisces period, which looks like it's what, March? Let me just look at this real quick. Get the date on it. Yeah, so Jupiter hits Pisces at 0 degrees. At 0 degrees in May, so it's May 14th, and it's going to be in Pisces. God, that's such a trip. It's going to be in Pisces for a month and a half. Goes retrograde. Jupiter's going to be in Pisces for more than that. Jupiter's going to be in Pisces for almost 2.5 months. It starts on the 15th of May, and it's out of there by the 28th of July. So that period, that's going to be a real trip. That period from the 15th of May to the 20th of July, that is not going to be regularly scheduled programming. That's going to be wild, especially during when it's squaring, like that early phase where in July or June, where it's squaring off against the sun in Gemini. That's going to be a trip. Let's see, what do we got here? Yeah, so mark this day on your calendar. May 21st. May 21st. May 21st, Sun at 0 Gemini, Jupiter at 0 Pisces. Yo. Interesting. Very interesting. So to me, I mean, that's it's very mutable. Very mutable. That's crazy energy. I think it's kind of crazy. And to me, that feels very, people, that's like rapture energy. That's where people are kind of like going off into some heavy religious kind of vibe space during that period, but I don't think it's really the rapture. This is gonna be a wild year, man. 5 energy is wild. It's wild energy, and buckle up, buckaroos. It's gonna be very interesting. And look, you're still here, right? You're still here, and you have to manage your life. There are things that you can do to still manage your life. Stay in the game. Stay healthy. Work on your spiritual life. Be able to look yourself in the mirror each day. Say, I like this person. I can live with this person. That's really important. And then I think we all have to come to terms with death. We have to come to terms with death, and we have to come to terms with what we're willing to live for or die for. I mean, I think that this is really what it boils down to. And once you have that, then it's really, they can't really take anything from you at that point. And it doesn't mean you have to be, morbid, but it means you have to reconcile some stuff. It's important. Okay, what do we got here? Japanese Imperial Army did a lot. Hey, there's Masaki. Wear your mask. That's so funny, Sandra. That is so funny. You guys are good. Hitler's wife presented him with the gas plug. Charles, you must be loving your Bills, man. They're the odds-on favorite right now. They trying to get a new stadium up there. Is Terry Pagua trying to get a new stadium? That's usually why teams do well. It's part of the NFL's playbook. Teams do well, and then they get a new stadium. Fatima keeps coming to mind. We're going to see some of that. We're going to see some of that. Oh, by the way, the other thing, get ready for the UFOs. The extraterrestrial shit, the alien stuff, the UFO stuff is going to happen. This is the year it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's already happening. Whether it's real or not, or whether it's, government craft, or they're flying out of Antarctica, or, out of the ocean, or who knows. It's going to happen. This is the year where this stuff starts to get very real. And I feel like 2022 is the culminator, right? 2022, you got 222, comes out to a 6. We have community. That's our galactic community, whatever. By the way, remember now, this year is 2021. And what do we know about 21? It is synchronous with Agenda 21. So there's a plan for this year. They got to put the stakes in the ground for their fucking Agenda 21 plan. But it's not going to go easy. It will not go as planned. So keep your sense of humor too. That's a good thing. All right. DC is a UFO hotspot, or at least it has been. Yep. To get on or not, I'm not getting on. I'm not getting on. Sorry. I don't think so. Do I think they'll be wearing? Sandra, you're funny. Yes, they will be wearing masks. Isn't that what the Greys are? With the Greys, aren't their like heads really masks? That's not really who they are. Is that right? Let's see. Anything else? You've been low vibe? Oh, well, we try to keep the vibe up here. Jasper helps. Much worse things than dying. So true. Absolutely. Absolutely. Greta wants masks on cows now. Wouldn't surprise me. Lean into it. I love it, Christine. That's right. That's the strategy. 21 is the legal drinking age. Used to be 18 in some parts of the world. Used to be 18 in Texas. Okay, I'm Polish. 3 Polish. Okay. Sedona has UFOs. Yes, they do. The day the Earth stood still. Classic T. Jordan. Klatu Baratu Niktu, which translates into I come in peace. All right, thanks everybody. You've been great. We'll hang out some more next week, and I'm going to be putting together a webinar series based on astrological strategies. Like, these are things that if you understand how to work these things, how to understand certain elements of your chart, it'll be very helpful. Very, very helpful. So, and we need kind of all the tools we can get. And it'll probably be like about a 3 or 4 week thing, maybe a 5 week thing. I'll do 5 since we're in a 5 year, but it'll be good. It'll be good, and it'll be affordable, so you guys can jump in. You're very funny, this group. You're very, very funny. Ian Barber was talking about the aliens, but will they take a knee? Oh, that's very funny. You guys are a crack up. All right, I'll be back tomorrow. And again, I want to thank Masaki, who's in the chat. You can go to akaida.com. That's his website right there, pyramidpower/esoterica. And tomorrow I'm going to play some stuff from a couple of interesting clips that I found on this one YouTube channel. And it has to do with how the past perceived the future. And the reset sort of creeps into this thing, which is, of course, another topic of conversation. And the year 1939 comes into it as well. But until then, get yourself a good night's sleep. Hope you have visionary dreams, every one of you. And we got this. Have a good night.